Seeing this scene, Ancestor White Tiger Elder once again praised. The consciousness body you condensed is becoming more and more perfect, and it already has various emotions. The destruction it carries is also stronger. Looks like you've already grasped the essence. Once again, Ancestor White Tiger Elder extended his right hand. The roaring phantom in his palm gradually solidified. It was a white tiger with slanted eyes. Its body was covered in black and white stripes, and the beastly might radiating from it was even fiercer than that of a true dragon. Ancestor White Tiger stood 100 feet tall, and it clashed with Imperial Wrath. The purple Imperial Wrath had thick earlobes with a huge earring dangling from them. When Shadow Tyrant slashed down, the endless blade intent was nearly frenzied. But Ancestor White Tiger was even stronger than imagined. His claws were incomparably tough, directly blocking the strike. Sparks flew, igniting blazing flames. The next moment, Ancestor White Tiger pounced, opening its massive bloody maw, its fangs filled with a strong stench of blood. It bit off the Imperial Wrath's head in one go. 14th form, Samsara Reversal. 15th form, Heaven Burial. When yin and yang are reversed, with my demonic blood I stain the sky. In an instant, mountains and rivers collapsed, space-time shattered. Yin and yang reversed, the starry river fell. The strike threw the world's rules into chaos, yin-yang fish dancing on the tip of the blade. One slash came down. Ancestor White Tiger roared in fury, trying to block. But its figure shattered in a twisted fashion upon contact with the blade. Interesting, not only breaking the rules but reversing them as well, Ancestor White Tiger said with a smile. He waved his right hand again, and another white tiger condensed. This one was visibly different from the last. Its stripes were not only black and white but laced with golden streaks. On its forehead, a third eye opened. Its ears perked slightly, and in its gaze was a trace of majesty. Its claws in particular looked sharper, as if they had evolved. Its body was covered in thick fur, exuding a terrifying aura as it stared at Suzimo. His body tilted back slightly, then it lunged forward. The form of Heaven Burial slashed out. The sky's curtain was once again pulled into darkness. This slash carried endless darkness, as though it could bury all things. It carried the ultimate of destruction, the final point of burial. But that very slash was caught in Ancestor White Tiger's jaws. The destructive intent upon it was swallowed whole. Ancestor White Tiger's massive head shook violently, tossing both the saber and Suzimo away. Impressive! Suzimo steadied himself and praised. Along his journey he had seen many powerful beings. He had seen God Emperor who stood as a Grand Emperor. Unfortunately, he had never fought them. First, because his strength had not been enough before. Even if he had fought, it wouldn't have brought much benefit. Second, because they were his own people. But this time, the opponent was someone at the Nirvana Void Realm. And that truly allowed Suzimo to feel a trace of fear, even smallness. He couldn't help but think of the realms beyond. Saint Sovereign, Infinite Tao, and ultimately the 12 Meridian Gates. How powerful must such existences be? The beings beyond the heavens filled him with both excitement and gravity. Boy, I'm becoming more curious about your later moves, Ancestor White Tiger Elder said with a grin. 19 forms of Tao Seeking. 16th form, Lifeless. 17th form, God Desolation. Lifeless represented infinity, but also the beginning of all. At the dawn of an epoch, all heaven and earth, all things, were within a single point. Even the vast universe and countless stars were but a dot. Outside the universe was still the universe, for it was endless. Lifeless birthed all things. One became two, two became three, three birthed all creation. This strike slashed down as though a brand new world was being condensed and evolving upon the blade. Although this world was fleeting as a blossom, it truly existed for that moment. This was lifeless, striking with the power of an illusory world. Ancestor White Tiger roared once more, not retreating but advancing, its claws gripping the blade. But in that moment, drops of crimson blood flowed from its paws. The blade was slowly cutting into its flesh. "Good, very good," Ancestor White Tiger Elder said with a smile. He raised his right hand, letting out a low shout, "War Celestial!" A streak of Saiyan spirit force flashed and shot into Ancestor White Tiger's body. The next moment, Ancestor White Tiger underwent another transformation. Its size swelled dozens of times larger, with 8 faces and 8 heads. 8 legs, 8 tails, its form appearing utterly strange. This white tiger's 2 front claws gripped Shadow Tyrant, while the other claws and bloody maws all lunged at Su Zimo. Su Zimo frowned slightly. This white tiger had, from beginning to end, used no techniques. It had relied only on pure defense and raw power to clash against his attacks. No matter how his forms changed, it could not be destroyed. He swung Shadow Tyrant once more, unleashing the 17th form, God Desolation. God Desolation, this was the name of a particle world that Su Zimo had once fallen into in a past life. That small world had been forged by the God Desolation Emperor. But it was not like the God world. Su Zimo's God world had perfect rules and was a true world. God Desolation, on the other hand, was incomplete from birth. After experiencing turmoil, it was ultimately destroyed. Su Zimo had once read the notes left by the God Desolation Emperor. They recorded his legacy. Though much of it was of little use, some parts were invaluable. Su Zimo slowly raised Shadow Tyrant. This was the law of God Desolation. The so-called God Desolation Tao states that through all martial paths, one could become a god. This god was not the God Meridian realm, but a true god, the kind that existed before even the desolate era of the primordial heartlands, older still, a being of the legendary era that had already vanished in the river of history. At this moment, Su Zimo was like a true god descending. Shadow Tyrant in his hand, domineering and unmatched, he stood alone above the world. Shadow Tyrant tore apart the starry river, scolded the seas, carrying the intent of a true god's descent. As if whispers of the legendary era resounded. Time and space reversed, as though returning to that era when gods stood side by side on a vast earth. "Looks like you've had quite the fortunes," Ancestor White Tiger Elder laughed. "But it's a bit coincidental. This white tiger of mine is also a god." "War Celestial!" Ancestor White Tiger raised its head, roaring at the sky. That roar carried a certain intent, such that one could understand it. In the sound, it was as though the words War Celestial resonated long and proudly. In the legendary era, there was once a race called War. They revered the tiger as their totem, and the god they worshipped was War Celestial. It had 8 heads and 8 faces, 8 legs and 8 tails. It was said that 9 was the limit of heaven and earth, and in its cultivation it had only been 1 step away. Ancestor White Tiger and Shadow Tyrant clashed again. A massive mushroom cloud erupted with an earth-shattering explosion, shaking heaven and earth as it soared into the skies. The aftermath sent all those fighting nearby flying. "This is..." Everyone looked at the center of the explosion, all with shocked expressions. "What level of battle is this? I didn't expect such an existence within the Heavenly Tao Academy," the Half-Moon Saint sighed. "The Heavenly Tao Academy has stood for countless years. It's not surprising for such an existence to appear," Universal True Immortal said calmly. "It's just that this old man is interesting. Even I have never heard of his name." Back then, Universal True Immortal also carried the Heavens Will alongside Master Merciful Voyage. That era was already far in the past. It could be said that he had heard of most things and most people. "You still have the heart to worry about others?" The voice of the woman in the white dress came from the side. Another lotus reflected the heavens, its 8 petals blooming and turning into a rain of flowers. "Dean, we admit that you are strong. Stronger than expected," Universal True Immortal said. "But the destruction of the Heavenly Tao Academy is fate. Even you, half-step into Nirvana Void, cannot reverse it." "That is none of your concern," the woman in white said calmly. The explosion at the center slowly dissipated. In the aftermath, the void that had completely collapsed was self-repairing. Su Zimo's figure and the white tiger remained locked in stalemate. The sound of crack, crack, suddenly rang out after long silence. Suzimo looked down. Perhaps because of the pressure being too great, cracks had begun to appear on Shadow Tyrant. It might not be long before the entire blade shattered into fragments. In terms of technique, I do not lose to you, Suzimo said calmly. It's only in raw power that I fall short. Short by quite a lot. Ancestor White Tiger laughed. Indeed, in the clash just now, God Desolation was absolutely not weaker than the opponent's War Celestial. But purely in strength, the Nirvana Void Realm was several levels higher than Suzimo's current God Meridian Realm. This was fundamentally a battle of mismatched power. Your 19 forms of Dao Seeking. Show me the last 2 as well, Ancestor White Tiger said. No need. Suzimo slightly shook his head. If it were the same realm, the first 17 would be enough. So you're looking down on me? Ancestor White Tiger chuckled. But what you said is true. You carry the bearing of a young emperor. Even stronger than many of the emperors I once knew. That's enough. Suzimo shook his head. The result he wanted had been achieved. Though I admit your talent, you must understand. A genius who has not yet grown up is nothing. Beside him, the White Tiger glared at Suzimo, ready to pounce at any time. Hey, I can't beat him. I'll leave him to you. Suzimo shouted to the woman in white who was fighting nearby. The woman in white smiled faintly. The white lotus in her hand bloomed once more, directly forcing Universal True Immortal and the other back. Then I'll leave them to you, the woman in white smiled. Master, please give me your guidance. White girl, you really want to fight me? Ancestor White Tiger said. Back then it was I who taught you to cultivate. For the sake of the Heavenly Tao Academy, I have no choice, the woman in white replied. Those old fellows ascended to the outer heavens, leaving such a mess for you. These years have been hard on you. Ancestor White Tiger laughed. The woman in white shook her head slightly and said, Since Master knows the hardship, why stab the Academy in the back at such a critical moment? You know the reason. Ancestor White Tiger's smile gradually faded. The White Tiger stood majestically at his side, radiating immense beastly might. Then forgive me, the woman in white said coldly. She strode forward, lotuses blooming under each step. Meanwhile, on the other side, Suzimo looked toward Universal True Immortal and the Half Moon Saint. You hold him off. I'll head into the treasure tower first, Universal True Immortal said. The Half Moon Saint hesitated slightly but still nodded. It was not Suzimo he hesitated over, but the fear that Universal True Immortal would seize all the treasures of the treasure tower for himself. Little brother, you'd best not stand in the way, the Half Moon Saint said, the crescent mark above his head glowing. He said calmly, That elder just now was only testing you. He never struck you with true force. You should be grateful. If you leave now, perhaps you can still preserve your life. Suzimo chuckled. Shadow Tyrant slowly lifted, and he slashed downward. He did not use God Desolation again, afraid that in its current state Shadow Tyrant would not withstand the pressure and shatter outright. The 16th style, Lifeless, was unleashed. A boundless world emerged within the light of blades and swords. As Shadow Tyrant pressed down with sonic booms overhead, the Half Moon Saint quickly raised his hands. A bright moon rotated above his head, blocking the strike. The blade fell, the moon shattered, shadows spread. With a boom like a cannon shot, the Half Moon Saint's figure was blasted backward. Care to repeat what you just said? Suzimo stood in place, Shadow Tyrant in hand. The aura around him rose higher and higher. He activated the War God's 9 transformations. Through Azure Dragon's 7th transformation, then Blue Cloud's 8th, and finally the War God's 9th transformation. The War God's armor condensed around Suzimo, battle intent overflowing. The winds and clouds churned, dragons roared, tigers howled. The Half Moon Saint steadied himself, glaring darkly at Suzimo. Better to deal with him first, then head to the treasure tower, he said to Universal True Immortal. Troublesome. Universal True Immortal snorted coldly. He placed his palms together in a Buddhist salute, standing tall as the Buddha light grew stronger. First light of the Buddha. Buddha light shines everywhere. Radiant Buddha light surged into the sky, covering everything around. But this Buddha light was strange. It seemed to have no attack at all. Yet when Su Zimo touched the Buddha light, he suddenly felt something unusual. In his eyes, universal true immortal had already become a true Buddha. As though this Buddha light seeped into every crack, peering into his inner world. All anger, delusion, hatred, rage, greed, all negative emotions were drawn out. In an instant, countless dark thoughts wrapped around him, as if to drown Su Zimo entirely. They say Buddhist light suppresses evil, drives away misfortune. Yet your Buddhist light breeds darkness. In the end, you are only defying the Buddha. Su Zimo laughed lightly. You are unaffected, universal true immortal said calmly. Your realm is not enough, Su Zimo replied. Heavenly Buddha descends. Universal true immortal snorted. Then, with a boom, as endless Buddha light surged, a colossal Buddha statue descended from the heavens. The Buddha's expression was calm. Faint Sanskrit chanting echoed through the air. The Buddha's palms struck downward, raising thousand-layered waves. Time and space rippled, as a giant hand suppressed from above. Su Zimo was not to be outdone. Shadow Tyrant slashed fiercely upward, clashing with the Buddha's palm in midair. The collision erupted in a massive explosion. A vast oppressive force exploded in the void. The massive Buddha palm collided with Shadow Tyrant, and at once Buddha light spread everywhere, golden radiance shining far outside the pavilion. Su Zimo circulated the force within his body, and with the surge of the war god's 9 transformations, his strength burst forth. Like a surging tide, wave after wave rose, each one higher than the last. The golden Buddha palm began to fracture inch by inch, the Buddha statue instantly dimming. I'll help you, the half-moon saint called out from the side. A moon will spun around him, and in the faint moonlight, a graceful figure seemed to be dancing. In the hazy moonlight, the figure's dance steps grew faster and faster, eventually turning into a killing aura. All of it surged toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo frowned slightly, his figure crossing the void in a flash, dodging the attack. Myriad Buddhas worship. Universal true immortal shouted loudly from nearby. Behind him his true fate manifested. It was a string of Buddhist relic beads. As the relics radiated intense Buddha light and embedded themselves into the brow of the great Buddha, the surrounding scene began to change. The abode of Samantabhadra, surrounded by 10,000 Buddhas. Countless phantoms of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas appeared around them. All of them assumed the same posture, facing Su Zimo. Like pilgrims, they bowed low in reverence. For Buddhas, beings of such level, to kneel before a mere human, how could anyone bear that? This was not only pressure, but also a suppression of one's fate itself. Merciful Voyage sacred ground lay in the northern reaches of the Overlord region. Whether it was Master Merciful Voyage or Universal True Immortal, both had once forged statues of themselves, placed in temples for the world to worship, gathering the incense of mortals. That was their fortune. Fortune was elusive, formless, invisible, yet it existed mysteriously in the unseen. Now 10,000 Buddhas were bowing toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo only felt as though the power of all living beings was crushing down on him, trying to force him to kneel as well. His blood boiled, his veins on the verge of bursting apart. Moon Shadow Massacre. The half-moon saint's voice sounded at the same time. His eyes twisted, his expression nearly feral. D. Yet in sharp contrast to his hideousness was the hazy moonlit figure. Like a graceful lady, her pale, delicate feet stepped forward slowly, as if dancing a mournful elegy. A dance that moved the mountains and shattered the sky, condensing endless killing intent. The moment the 10,000 Buddhas' worship suppressed Su Zimo, a dark moon covered in frost struck forth. Phantom moon over heaven. That dark moon carried Tao rhythm, as if the hazy figure was singing, murmuring softly, embodying an invincible path of return. 10 forms of demon, fourth form. Celestial demon, trial of heaven. This trial meant defying the laws, shattering worlds, destroying all beings. Only then could one be immortal. This strike carried the sharpness to break the world itself. At the tip of Shadow Tyrant's blade, demonic energy pulsed. It did not flood outward, but condensed to a single point. Within this blade's shadow reflected a vast demonic abyss. One strike fell, the dark moon shattered, the 10,000 Buddhas lost their light. Heaven and earth shook. The mighty clouds and winds were consumed by demonic energy. Su Zimo stepped forward, the tip of his blade dancing like death's own waltz. Thunder roared, lightning split, one slash cut toward both of them. "We can't block it," Universal True Immortal cried. The Buddha statues around him shifted once more, his full strength unleashed. Myriad Buddhas nirvana. The faded Buddhas all revived, as though reborn in nirvana. They chanted the 9-word mantra, Namo Amitabha, illuminating the heavens. Against the black demonic aura, golden Buddha light emerged, wrapping golden characters that floated in the void. At the same time, the half-moon saint held nothing back either. Moon Qilin, absolute zero. As he spoke, his entire body froze in ice. Above his head, the dark moon visibly crystallized with thick layers of ice. Waves of cold spread outward. They froze the void, froze all things. Even the air itself seemed bound. The chill and the Buddha chants formed two extremes. Both crashed down upon Su Zimo. "Not enough to reach the apex," Su Zimo chuckled. Though cracks on Shadow Tyrant grew more visible, its blade intent grew even heavier. Boundless blade intent surged like a sea of hell, rising skyward. The 3 gates opened fully. Blade intent tore through the heavens, roared across the stars, crashing down in boundless might. The war god's 9 transformations, the 3 gates, the heaven-shattering God scripture, and the 16 forms of Tao seeking, all erupted at once in this moment. Not only did the heavens collapse, it seemed even the firmament itself was about to be destroyed. Above heavenly Tao City, even the skies of the Overlord region cracked open in places. The scope and scale of the devastation were rarely seen in history. As the slash fell, Shadow Tyrant finally could not withstand the force and shattered into countless fragments. But the strike still fell. The icy dark moon and the Buddha chants were obliterated in an instant. The sky itself exploded completely. Inside the pavilion, Pure Water watched with a pounding heart. "So this is his strength," she muttered. Her mind could not fathom it. It was not that she had never seen such power. Her master, the woman in white, wielded even greater strength. But her master was a half-step nirvana void existence. And Su Zimo, he was only in the God Meridian realm. For such strength to erupt from one of his level was incomprehensible, unimaginable. If he were to enter the immortal path one day, how dazzling would he be? Or even if he never did, among his peers, who could compete with him? At this moment, Pure Water even felt a trace of sorrow. For herself and for the younger generation of this era. Who among those chosen by heaven's will did not wish to carry it, to rule the world? But to live in the same era as someone like him, that was tragedy. The explosion's aftermath destroyed everything around. All buildings, flowers, trees, vanished into smoke and dust. The earth quaked, the sky tore apart. Only the treasure tower stood unharmed. For it was not physical, but condensed from spirit force. As long as the treasure tower's particle world endured, the tower would not be destroyed. When the dust settled, a breeze swept through. Su Zimo stood on cracked earth, calm-faced, bending to pick up Shadow Tyrant's broken fragments. On the other side, Universal True Immortal and the half-moon saint lay in disarray, their hair loose and ragged, battered and miserable. "This is impossible, absolutely impossible," the half-moon saint muttered in madness. "How could a mere God Meridian realm be our opponent?" Meanwhile, the battle between the woman in white and Ancestor White Tiger still raged on. Ancestor White Tiger still looked relaxed. It was clear he had not used his full strength. No matter how the woman in the white dress attacked, she could not defeat him. Ancestor White Tiger glanced at Su Zimo, then laughed and said, "Seems the student your Heavenly Tao Academy trained isn't bad at all. What's this? Planning to send him into the war for heaven's will this year. He's not from the Academy. On the contrary, he's helped the Academy a great deal." The woman in white replied calmly, "That's true. With the state of the Heavenly Tao Academy today, how could it possibly produce such an outstanding student?" Ancestor White Tiger chuckled. His words carried a trace of mockery. "Then, if the Academy were given to Master, can you guarantee you'd train someone better than him?" The woman in white countered. "White girl, you're putting me in a tough spot," Ancestor White Tiger said. "You should know the reason I came back this time." "I know, but a master's order cannot be defied. Otherwise, I wouldn't even care for the dean's position," the woman in white said. "Since I promised my teacher back then, I must see it through. If you agree to my condition, then I can deal with the sky blue demon rock," Ancestor White Tiger said. "No need. The Academy has its ancestors to handle it," the woman in white said. "Those people?" Ancestor White Tiger shook his head with disdain at her words. "They're even worse than you. A bunch already half in the coffin, abandoned by the times. Even if they come back to struggle, it's meaningless." Su Zimo silently collected all the fragments of Shadow Tyrant. Pure Water hurried forward and asked, "Are you all right?" Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Looking at the heavily injured Half-Moon Saint and Universal True Immortal, he slowly brought out the Codex of Life and Death. "What are you trying to do?" The Half-Moon Saint, feeling the heavy aura of life and death from the Codex, asked warily. "What do you think?" Su Zimo countered. "You want to offend both our Crescent Imperium and Merciful Voyage Sacred Ground?" The Half-Moon Saint said. "With things as they are, life and death are already decided. Why worry about offending anyone?" Su Zimo laughed. "Little brother, spare us. Whatever you want, we can give it to you," Universal True Immortal interjected. "Sorry. Even if you handed me the entire Merciful Voyage Sacred Ground, I wouldn't be interested." Su Zimo shook his head. "We only came to the Heavenly Tao Academy to seize a few things, not to destroy it. Must you truly drive us to the end?" Universal True Immortal said unwillingly. "This has nothing to do with the Heavenly Tao Academy. It's just me personally wanting to kill you." When Su Zimo opened the Codex of Life and Death, Universal True Immortal's face changed drastically. He roared, "Run!" The two of them dragged their wounded bodies, burning their own blood, fleeing into the void. Even if it left hidden injuries, even if their cultivation regressed, they no longer cared. Because they could feel the killing intent, absolute killing intent. "You think you can run?" Su Zimo laughed. The Codex of Life and Death, ranked 18th among all the supreme treasures, not only determined the life and death of all beings, but could also absorb life-death souls to nourish itself, continuously evolving. Back when the Feather Race was destroyed, this codex had absorbed their life-death souls. Life-death souls were different from God souls. A person had 3 souls and 7 spirits. The 3 souls were heaven, earth, and fate. It was said that after death, the heaven soul ascended the heavenly road, the earth soul guarded the grave, and the fate soul fell into reincarnation. The life-death soul was the fate soul. Without a fate soul, not only could one not live, but even reincarnation was impossible. But stripping away the 3 souls was difficult. It was tied to destiny itself. Techniques dealing with the 3 souls and 7 spirits were extremely rare. Yet the Codex of Life and Death specialized in exactly this. As the two tried to escape, within the Codex a hazy black hole appeared again, black and white chains shooting out. In an instant they bound the two, dragging them toward the black hole. If they were at full strength, they could naturally break free. But now, with their broken bodies, once their blood was exhausted, they would be nothing more than cripples. As their bodies were slowly dragged into the black hole, Universal True Immortal roared, "Save me!" His voice echoed across the entire Heavenly Tao Academy. At that moment, an old crone riding black clouds walked in from the distance. Seeing her, Universal True Immortal's eyes lit up, and he shouted, "Dark Ancestor, save us!" But behind the crone followed a man with a sword. The man wore white robes, his long sword glowing purple, 10,000 swords orbiting his body, as he battled fiercely with the crone. "Universal true immortal, how did you end up so battered?" Dark Ancestor frowned. As one of the founders of the Dark Heaven Sacred Ground, she was also one of the main leaders in the assault on the Heavenly Tao Academy this time. "Don't ask so much, just help us break free," the Half-Moon Saint shouted. As their bodies sank deeper into the black hole, they were like ants on a hot pan, panic written all over them. Dark Ancestor struck the void lightly with her dragon-headed cane. But before she could act further, the man in white pressed the attack. His long sword slashed through the silent void, straight toward her head. "This old woman doesn't want to fight you. Don't push too far." Dark Ancestor halted her cane strike and glared at him. Though dressed in snowy white, the man was clearly gravely injured. His robes were drenched in blood, the crimson spreading further than the white. But he refused to give up, clinging stubbornly to Dark Ancestor. "My mission is to hold you here. As long as I still breathe, you'll make no move," the man in white said. Dark Ancestor snorted coldly, her dragon-headed cane glowing with dark light. A massive ghost head formed upon it. The next moment, the ghost roared forth, shattering all incoming sword energy. It struck with great speed, slamming into the man's chest. PFT! Blood spurted from his mouth. His body curled up like a shrimp, eyes dim, flung away violently. As he lay on the ground, he forced himself to rise again. Just as he prepared to fight once more, his peripheral vision caught sight of Ancestor White Tiger nearby. "Master!" The man in white froze, his sword nearly falling. He stared in disbelief at the figure from his memory. "Master, Master!" The man in white shouted madly, running toward Ancestor White Tiger. Ancestor White Tiger halted his battle, glanced at the man, and chuckled softly. "Howard, it's been a long time. Where have you been all these years?" "I've been looking for you," the man in white asked quickly. "What's the point of finding me? Everything I needed to teach you, I already did," Ancestor White Tiger replied. Hearing the words of Ancestor White Tiger, Hao Yunzi was stunned for a moment and replied, "But I have not yet repaid the kindness of your teachings, Master. Why did you leave without saying goodbye back then?" "Howard, everyone has their own path to walk. The hardest thing is parting." Ancestor White Tiger smiled. "That is why I did not wish to say farewell. I did not want to add more sorrow." "You still have the time to reminisce here?" the old crone sneered. With a wave of her right hand, dark spirit force surged, countless ghost heads and miserable wails spread out from within. Ancestor White Tiger raised his head and lightly lifted his eyelids. It was clear his mood was not good. With a single palm strike, the clouds split, mist scattered, and a palm that blotted out the sky descended. The dark spirit force violently shook. The old crone had no time to react before she was heavily slapped into the earth, driven thousands of meters deep underground. "So Master has returned this time to help the Academy out of crisis?" Hao Yunzi continued to ask. "Will you stay and not leave again?" "You should ask the Dean," Ancestor White Tiger replied with a smile. Seeing the expectant look in Hao Yunzi's eyes, the woman in the white dress fell silent for a moment before speaking. "I am naturally glad if Grandmaster returns. But if you wish to forcibly seize the position of Dean, I will not yield. It is not that I covet the position of Dean, but since my master entrusted it to me, I must fulfill that promise." "Master, do you want to be Dean?" Hao Yunzi asked in surprise, looking at Ancestor White Tiger. Ancestor White Tiger did not answer directly but smiled and said, "Howard, you have grown a lot. I have only just stepped into the immortal path," Hao Yunzi said dejectedly. "When I first became your disciple, among all the disciples I was the worst in talent. Even though I have worked hard for so many years, I have barely progressed, and I fear I have disappointed you." The group chatted as if reminiscing. Meanwhile, Su Zimo was not idle. He used the Codex of Life and Death to drag the struggling half-moon saint and universal true immortal toward the black hole to be devoured. Without the obstruction of the old crone, no matter how much the two resisted and begged, it was useless. Finally, with their last screams, they disappeared into the black hole formed by the Codex of Life and Death. After absorbing the life souls of the two powerful ones, a stream of light flashed across the surface of the Codex of Life and Death. All things have spirits. As a godly artifact, the Codex of Life and Death naturally had its own spirit. But because of its separation from the brush of life and death, it had been damaged and fallen into slumber. Now, after absorbing these life souls, it seemed to awaken slightly, transmitting a sense of satisfaction to Suzimo. Suzimo, however, seemed unsatisfied and turned his gaze toward the old crone in the deep pit. He now had a rough idea of how strong the Nirvana Void Realm was. When fighting earlier with Ancestor White Tiger, the latter had not even used full strength, merely testing him. Now, with just one palm strike, he had gravely injured the immortal-level old crone. He activated the Codex of Life and Death again, using its chains to drag the old crone from thousands of meters underground, preparing to devour her. As for the matter of Ancestor White Tiger, Suzimo had no intention of meddling. That was not a realm he could deal with, unless he summoned Paimon and the others. But Suzimo always felt that unless it was absolutely necessary, the path he walked should rely as little as possible on external forces. As he devoured the old crone, he cast a glance at the others nearby. "Howard, go and tend to your wounds," Ancestor White Tiger said with a wave of his hand. "Master, are you going to become an enemy of the Academy?" Hao Yunzi said in disbelief. "Why? You were one of those who helped establish the Heavenly Tao Academy back then. I told you to go heal. Will you not even listen to your master's words?" Ancestor White Tiger's eyes grew cold as he spoke calmly. "This matter is not for you to interfere with. As a member of the Academy, how can I not interfere?" Hao Yunzi's face was filled with grief as he sighed. "You are my master, and I do not wish to oppose you. But the Academy is my home, and I cannot sit by idly. Today I will take my own life here to end all attachment." After saying this, Hao Yunzi drew his sword and slashed toward his own neck. Ancestor White Tiger's eyes narrowed. With a flick of his right hand, a white spirit force shot out and knocked Hao Yunzi unconscious. In a flash, he caught his disciple's falling body and muttered, "Foolish child, foolish child." The Heavenly Tao Academy had been established in the Desolate Era. In that time, when the beast race ruled, humanity struggled in everything. Later, during the Imperial Era, the Heavenly Tao Academy prospered. Teaching without discrimination, students came from all corners of the land. Hao Yunzi had entered as part of the third batch of students. At that time, his talent was the worst and he had been directly expelled from the academy. It was only because Ancestor White Tiger pitied him that he took him as a disciple. Looking at his unconscious disciple in his arms, Ancestor White Tiger remained silent for a long time. "Enough, enough. Back then, it was only a grudge between me and Green Tiger. What does it have to do with you juniors?" With his right hand, he tore open the void before him and stepped in with Hao Yunzi. His heavy voice echoed in the empty void. "White girl managed the academy well." Respectfully seeing Grandmaster off, the woman in the white dress bowed slightly, letting out a sigh of relief. "Who was that old man?" Suzimo came over and asked. "What old man?" "Grandmaster is one of the founders of our academy. Now that you are part of the academy, you should call him Ancestor." The woman glared at Suzimo and said, "That makes me fall several generations lower in an instant." Suzimo laughed. "If he is part of the academy, why did he come to cause trouble during its time of crisis? Also, as far as I know, he is not one of the 10 founders, right?" The 10 founders were indeed the greatest contributors to the academy's establishment. But such a great institution cannot be built by only 10 people. The woman in white said, "This relates to some secrets. I'll tell you, but you must not spread it outside." Among the 10 founders, Sage Green Tiger and Ancestor White Tiger were once fellow disciples. After the academy was established, Sage Green Tiger became one of the 10 founders, while Ancestor White Tiger was not chosen. Naturally, he felt unbalanced. After all, back then, many people had made great contributions to the academy's founding. The first dean of the academy was Sage Green Tiger. Ancestor White Tiger always coveted the position, hoping that after Green Tiger retired, he would become the second dean. But unfortunately, Green Tiger passed the position to my master, and later my master passed it to me. Ancestor White Tiger, furious, left the academy. Then that Sage Green Tiger was pretty ruthless. Suzumo laughed. You don't understand, so don't talk nonsense. The woman rolled her eyes at him and explained. The dean's position is not something just anyone strong can hold. It requires managing the academy and planning for its future. Ancestor White Tiger may be powerful, but he knew nothing about such matters. How could he be dean? I've heard many disciples of the academy spend hundreds of years there and still haven't seen you once. Aren't you the same? Suzumo said with a smile. I've always been managing things from the shadows. I simply don't enjoy showing my face. The woman in the white dress replied. So what's next? Suzumo asked. The 7 lineages, 3 of their ancestors have already been slain by us. The remaining 4 can't stir up much trouble. You've surprised me somewhat, the woman in the white dress said after giving Suzumo a long look up and down. I had expected a bitter fight, but your presence has broken some of the balance. You carry many secrets. What, are you that curious? Suzumo asked. Although you're the holy son of the true martial sacred ground, your strength is not something that sect alone could have nurtured. Fixing her gaze firmly on Suzumo, she asked, what is your true fate? Do you know? The beginning of love often starts with a woman being curious about a man? Suzumo laughed. That's not an answer. The woman chuckled lightly. Actually, I had already arrived when you were fighting Mo Tianming. But the 9-star alignment covered everything, and I only caught a vague shadow. From start to finish in that battle, you never once used your true fate. What are you hiding? I kindly help your Heavenly Tao Academy, and this is how you repay me with suspicion? Suzumo shook his head. Well then, if you don't want to say, I won't force it. The woman replied calmly. These imperial lineages, I've never truly cared about them. Unless they choose to fight to the death and throw in their entire power, they can't cause much damage. They know that themselves. So their goal this time was plunder, not destruction of the academy. What worries me now is that Sky Blue Demon Rock. The Merciful Voyage Sacred Ground, the Crescent Imperium, and the Dark Heaven Sacred Ground, 3 major ancestors of theirs have been killed. I'm afraid they didn't expect that, Suzumo said. When the word spreads, we'll just say you killed them. Don't drag me into it. You're afraid. The woman narrowed her eyes slightly and smiled at him. Afraid? Suzumo nodded without hesitation. In truth, he wasn't really afraid of these imperial lineages, only annoyed by the hassle. Even if he exterminated them all, he'd gain nothing and only waste time. Hearing his straightforward answer, the woman in the white dress was momentarily stunned. The sarcastic retort she had prepared was swallowed back down. Geniuses, powerful cultivators, they all value their reputation immensely. Yet clearly, this world has never lacked for shameless people. I'm going to see the Sky Blue Demon Rock. Do you want to come? She asked. Among the Academy's 10 sages, none of them have broken into Nirvana Void? Suzumo asked. You think Nirvana Void is like cabbages easily grown? It's not that simple, she replied. To put it bluntly, out of millions of Zenith Immortals, not even one may break through. Are you just indirectly praising yourself? Suzumo asked. After all, she had already stepped into half-step Nirvana Void, and might not be far from crossing that final step. Seems like you know nothing of Nirvana Void, she said, glancing at him. How so? Suzumo asked. First, how much do you know of the Immortal Path? Do you understand the difference between Immortals and God Meridian cultivators? She asked. I'm not walking the Immortal Path in the future. I've never studied those books. Suzumo shook his head. Let me put it this way, everything below the God meridian, including it, relies on borrowing the power of heaven and earth. But once you ascend into the immortal path, you begin to comprehend your own nomological truth, she explained. The so-called nomological truth, or true meaning, is the primordial state of this world's laws. Nomological truth, Su Zimo muttered. From arcane immortal, celestial immortal, immortal sovereign, undying immortal, to zenith immortal, these 5 stages of immortal ascension are simply progressively deeper understandings of nomological truths, she continued. And to break the barrier of immortal ascension and enter nirvana void requires 2 steps. What 2 steps? Su Zimo asked. First step, the nomological truth transforms into primal Taos. Nirvana void cultivators can comprehend the primal Taos of heaven and earth. Their words shape reality. Their will mirrors heaven and earth. The second step is to undergo the baptism of heavenly tribulation, she said. The process of cultivation is a process of transcendence, of breaking shackles one by one. You must have heard that breaking through 12 meridian gates grants immortality and eternal transcendence. But transcendence means not only transcending yourself, but also transcending this world. Heaven and earth do not allow beings they cannot control. So once your cultivation reaches a certain level, every step forward will trigger tribulation. Survive it and you are reborn. Fail and at worst you die, at best you remain stuck for life. Then what exactly is half-step nirvana void? Su Zimo asked again. As I said, nirvana void requires 2 steps. I've already completed the first nomological truth into primal Taos. But I've yet to endure heavenly tribulation, so I'm only half a step there, she explained. These matters, far yet near for you. But remember, nomological truths or primal Taos, they don't appear out of nothing. They've always existed within this world. We simply lacked the strength to sense them. The stronger you grow, the clearer they become. Our primordial heartlands is only a major world. Primal Taos are concealed here and hard to comprehend. In particle worlds, it's even worse, not only primal Taos, even nomological truth is difficult to grasp. That's why many who enter the path of immortality choose to ascend to the outer heavens. The outer heavens belong to a much greater world, with stronger capacity, its primal Taos openly manifest. The chances of breaking into nirvana void are much higher. That's why most of our primordial heartlands top cultivators, 8 or 9 out of 10 choose to ascend. For someone like Ancestor White Tiger, who remained here yet still comprehended primal Taos and endured tribulation, that's rarer than 1 in tens of thousands. I see, Su Zimo murmured. So you understand now. The fact that none of the 10 sages broke into nirvana void isn't strange at all, the woman said. How about we make a trade? From what I know, your true martial sacred grounds Sky Shroud War God has already broken into nirvana void. If he were to help, that sky blue demon rock wouldn't be a problem. What would I get in return? Su Zimo asked. What do you want? She asked in return. Su Zimo pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, It seems your Heavenly Tao Academy really doesn't have anything I want. His purpose in coming here was the 9-curve God Flame. Now that he had helped guard the Myriad Treasures Tower, the divine fire was already as good as his. As for other things, unless there was something that could greatly boost his strength for the outer heavens, nothing else mattered much. What do you mean, your Heavenly Tao Academy? You're part of it too, you should have a sense of honor and disgrace. The woman in white snorted in reply. You definitely have a way, right? Don't even think about true martial sacred ground, Su Zimo said. Everyone knew that the Heavenly Tao Academy must have some method to deal with the sky blue demon rock. The only question was what kind of price it would cost. Otherwise, before the beast emerged, the Academy would have already left. Why wait until now? Doing something that seems impossible anyway. I won't hide it from you. Back then, before the 10 founders left, as a precaution, they left behind a way to deal with the sky blue demon rock. The woman in white nodded. This ties back to the origins of the sky blue demon rock. Su Zimo quietly listened without interrupting. It is said that long ago, between heaven and earth, there was a golden-winged great rock. This rock fed on dragons and giant serpents every day, extremely powerful. It lived countless years, but eventually its lifespan came to an end. Unwilling to die, it soared 7 times through the skies before finally reaching the legendary Vajra-Will Mountain. But by then its body had already burned away completely, leaving only a beast core glazed heart. By chance, this beast core glazed heart merged with the 9 sky fiend force suppressed under Vajra-Will Mountain, and thus the sky blue demon rock was born. Wait, 9 sky fiend force? Su Zimo frowned slightly. He naturally understood how terrifying that energy was. Between heaven and earth, there once existed 3 primordial energies. One was spirit force. That was the primal energy for cultivation of all beings, of utmost importance. Then there was fiend force and deep force. Of course, some called deep force by another name, clear energy. It was said these were the 3 most powerful energies that came into being when the primordial heartlands first split. Deep force rose to the heavens, fiend force sank into the earth, and spirit force spread across the mortal world. That's right. When the 9 sky fiend force fused with the beast core glazed heart, it broke free of shackles, making it reach the Nirvana void realm. The woman in white said, "These things were told to me by the sages. As for whether they're true, who knows?" "So the method you mentioned is what?" Su Zimo asked. "It's still related to those 3 energies. Spirit force is balanced and suitable for all beings to cultivate, without conflict. But deep force and fiend force are natural enemies, like fire and water. They suppress each other." The woman in white explained. The 10 founders left a secret. The 9 skies deep force could suppress the sky blue demon rock, sealing it once more. If there were a Nirvana void cultivator to help, it could even be slain. But since we don't have one, as long as we can seal it, that's enough. "Looks like you're already prepared," Su Zimo said. "But I have little confidence, so I'll still need your help then," the woman in white replied. Su Zimo thought it over. Helping guard the Myriad Treasures Tower was just part of his deal for the 9-curve God Flame, so that didn't really count as helping. But now, as a student of the Heavenly Tao Academy, and since he had found the brush of life and death here, helping out wasn't unreasonable. "All right," he nodded slightly. "Before suppressing the sky blue demon rock, let's clear out the academy first." The woman in white smiled. "2 each?" Su Zimo asked. "The proud dragon ancestor and the 9 Suns Wanderer are yours. I'll handle Thunder Demon and the Burning Heaven War General," the woman in white said. Then the 2 split, heading in different directions. Su Zimo scanned the surroundings, quickly discerning where to go. The proud dragon ancestor was at the Glazed Palace, battling Venerable Min. When Su Zimo arrived, he saw it had already become a battlefield of blood and carnage. The losses for the academy this time would be incalculable. Other than the standing Glazed Palace itself, all other structures around had been annihilated into the void. Desolation everywhere, ruins and rubble. From not far away, dragon roars still raged. To the north of the Glazed Palace, countless serpents encircled a thunder dragon with a body of violet lightning. Though the snakes were many, they were much weaker in strength. Thunder surged into the skies, forming rolling thunderclouds above. Endless lightning cascaded down, annihilating all the serpents within the furious storm. "Venerable Min, once I destroy these red snakes, it will be your end." The thunder dragon spoke with human tongue, filled with killing intent. "To make one last contribution to the academy before death, my life has been worthwhile." Venerable Min laughed calmly. Even at the brink of death, he remained tranquil, speaking with ease. This time, the academy's founders had gone to suppress the sky blue demon rock, so they needed to buy as much time as possible. The red snakes were manifestations of his spirit force. But with the proud dragon ancestor's relentless slaughter, his energy was nearly exhausted. If one looked closely, his face was pale, with sweat trickling down his forehead. Behind him coiled his true fate, the red snake. The number of serpents dwindled, and even his true fate was beginning to blur. "Now!" the proud dragon ancestor suddenly roared. Catching a flaw, the dragon's twisting body transformed into pure thunder. It pierced through layers of void, lunging straight for Venerable Min's abdomen. The speed of that thunder was nearly imperceptible. Venerable Min no longer had time to dodge. As the Thunder Dragon was about to strike him, a booming explosion suddenly erupted in front of him. Dust filled the broken space. Thunder remnants crackled, violet arcs flashing in the void. Venerable Min, who had been ready to die, lowered his head slowly. A hand had appeared in front of him, blocking the incoming colossal dragon claw. Though that hand was but a fraction of the claw's size, the power it carried was overwhelming. Then the hand pressed forward lightly. With a dragon's roar, the massive Thunder Dragon was blasted backwards. Venerable Min swallowed hard and looked up. Su Zimo stood before him. "Rest. Leave the rest to me." Su Zimo rolled his arm and smiled. "You." Venerable Min wanted to speak but found no words. "Be careful." Finally, he retreated to the side, beginning to restore himself. At this point, he had no strength left, and he knew better than to force himself. "Who are you?" the massive Thunder Dragon asked, glaring at Su Zimo. "My name, you should have heard of it before, Su Zimo," Su Zimo replied with a smile. The Thunder Dragon pondered for a moment. Then its aura suddenly changed. Even its eyes turned scarlet. "It was you who killed the holy son of my lineage." The meaning of a holy son to a lineage, especially at a time when the heaven's will is about to form, goes without saying. It completely destroyed the lineage's hope of bearing this generation's heaven's will. Of course, they could cultivate another person, but the effect and significance of forging at the last moment could not compare. The birth of a holy son was the accumulation of unimaginable resources. Too many things were included in it. Therefore, when the holy son of the ancient dragon dynasty was killed, it immediately caused a great uproar within the dynasty. It was only because of the appearance of the sky blue demon rock that they endured and did not immediately come to the academy to capture Su Zimo for punishment. "And you still dare to show yourself?" The Thunder Dragon roared each word with fury. "Why wouldn't I dare? I came to cut you down," Su Zimo replied with a laugh. The proud dragon ancestor no longer answered. Instead, the lightning surrounding him grew increasingly violent. This small world seemed to be completely buried in thunder. Dark clouds filled the sky above, and purple lightning flashed between them. Raindrops even began to fall. The roar of thunder echoed as if the heavens themselves were enraged. Under this force, the lightning around the proud dragon ancestor began to change. Its entire body grew deeper in color. From purple, it darkened toward black. Its 4 claws became 8. The scales on its body condensed further. Whether its eyes or head, they seemed to evolve. "This is..." A recovering Venerable Min frowned slightly, whispering, "An ultimate dragon?" It was said that the dragon race had divisions of form. Most dragons we now see were lesser dragons. Above them were true dragons, then dragon gods, and ultimately the ultimate dragons. The ultimate dragons were rare and scarcely seen. Even Venerable Min only knew of 3. The ancient Void Dragon, the godly Rainbow Dragon, and the Darkfire Demon Dragon. But the dragon before him differed from all he knew, though by its aura it was undoubtedly an ultimate dragon. "I promise, today I will not kill you," the proud dragon ancestor said to Su Zimo. "I will take you back to Dragon Refining Cliff, where for all eternity you will be trapped, suffering endless torment and pain." "You're quite the amusing dragon," Su Zimo said with a smile. In his god world, there were many dragons, but they were only ordinary dragons, the strongest no more than dragon gods. As for ultimate dragons, he had never seen one. Of course, this also made him marvel at the might of the ancient dragon emperor of old. With a human body, he transformed into a dragon god. And even after, he could leave behind dragon species of such existence. Every grand emperor is the pride of an era. Unfortunately, the rest of you are merely shaded beneath their trees, Su Zimo said lightly. "Heaven-eroding ancient dragon," the proud dragon ancestor said with some arrogance. "Boy, you probably still don't understand the true might of the dragon race." Its body slowly moved, the surrounding endless void shattering apart. Chaotic spatial currents raged nearby. Its massive dragon tail, without using any force, relying only on the strength of its body, swept toward Suzimo. Suzimo struck with a fist, intending to test it. But the immense power directly sent him flying. Interesting. Suzimo stood up from the ground, chuckling softly. Damn you! The proud dragon ancestor snorted coldly, attacking Suzimo again. The massive dragon head roared, its dragon cry reverberating across the sky. Its bloody maw opened, trying to swallow Suzimo whole. Suzimo extended his hands, his right pressing against the upper jaw, his left against the lower, not allowing it to close. The reeking stench nearly drowned him. The giant dragon's body pushed against him, forcing him backward. His feet left deep marks across the ground. The heaven-shattering force within him spun wildly. Suzimo gripped tightly and directly flung the massive dragon head aside. The dragon god's colossal body slammed into the ground, the earth cracking, countless fissures spreading out. I'll aid you. Venerable Min, who had recovered somewhat, stepped into the air shouting. No need, go help the others. I can handle this, Suzimo said calmly. He and the dragon grappled head-on, a true bare-handed battle. Because of the shattering of Shadow Tyrant, Suzimo now had no suitable weapon. But he had already obtained the true god sword and possessed the supreme god hammer, planning to fuse the two. Reforge Shadow Tyrant. Hearing Suzimo's words, Venerable Min hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The Heavenly Tao Academy was short of hands now. Since Suzimo had confidence, he dared not delay. He immediately stepped into the air toward another battlefield. Just as Suzimo and the proud dragon ancestor clashed, its massive dragon head swelled, a blazing shockwave blasting from its mouth. Suzimo quickly crossed his arms before him. When the blaze exploded before him, his body retreated several steps. Rest assured, I will slowly torment you, the proud dragon ancestor said. Even if I gain nothing else this trip, capturing you is enough. Is that so? Suzimo waved his hand. I suddenly thought of a very good idea. In his right hand, the power of creation surged. Within the true fate, the god world tore open a crack in the void. At Suzimo's command, all the dragon gods of the myriad beast realm ripped through the void and soared into the sky. By now, the myriad beast realm had flourished, especially the dragon race, which had become its key force. At this moment, 10,000 dragons appeared. The sight was beyond words. Scarlet dragons, phantom dragons, storm god dragons, soul-devouring rage dragons, desolate dragons, coiled dragons, cloud dragons. Even rare ones such as the deep-sea imperial dragon and the sky-clear azure jelly dragon were among them. In the past, the dragon tree spread branches and leaves, giving rise to all sorts of dragon breeds. This was the preparation made after the dragon race had been slaughtered by the war god, so that they could reproduce. The price they paid was unimaginable. 10,000 dragons roared under the vast sky. All were the soaring figures of these dragons. They rode clouds and mist, summoned wind and rain, thunder and lightning. All manner of visions appeared. This is... The proud dragon ancestor saw this scene, his voice trembling. I think they'll suit you well. Have fun. Suzimo smiled. The proud dragon ancestor, who had evolved into a heaven-eroding ancient dragon, carried ultimate dragon blood within him. It was lethally attractive to the evolution of these dragons. Kill. With Suzimo's command, 10,000 dragons dove down, charging toward the proud dragon ancestor. Tens of thousands of dragon gods. Their dragon might surged forth endlessly. Dragon roars shook heaven and earth, deafening, echoing one after another without pause. Even within hundreds of miles, one could still feel this vast oppressive dragon might and the unceasing chorus of roars. How can this be? The proud dragon ancestor raised his head, his gaze filled with terror. The dragon race had long been annihilated. This was a consensus on the primordial heartlands. Ever since the battle with the Sky Shroud war god, the remnants of dragons left in this world had supposedly gone extinct. At most, only one or two stragglers, barely clinging to life, could be found. The ancient dragon dynasty was considered one of the forces with the deepest ties to the dragon race. Although the proud dragon ancestor's strength was extremely powerful, in numbers he was being utterly crushed. When countless dragon gods charged forth like a tidal wave, the figure of the proud dragon ancestor was swallowed among them. The serpentine bodies intertwined and coiled together. For a moment, storms roared, dark clouds gathered, fire intertwined with frost, and green light shot up to the skies. The proud dragon ancestor could only endure for a brief while before the scales on his body were ripped apart. Miserable shrieks rang out, so wretched they moved the hearts of those who heard them. In an instant he was besieged by tens of thousands of dragons, clawed at, bitten, struck with attacks of every element. Scales fell away, revealing bloody flesh. "Zimo!" the proud dragon ancestor roared. "If you have the ability, fight me one-on-one. What is this? Don't you think you sound naive?" Zimo laughed. "I'm afraid you don't even have the qualifications to duel me. You'd best worry about yourself first. Release me, let our enmity be erased. How about that?" The proud dragon ancestor, after struggling futilely several times, could only resort to words. "No, no, no, I said I would cut you down, and I must keep my word." Zimo shook his head with a smile. The dragons roared all around him, every bite tearing flesh, every strike drawing blood. The anguished cries of the proud dragon ancestor never ceased. "Zimo, I will not let you go. My ancient dragon dynasty will see you torn to pieces." The proud dragon ancestor howled with hatred. Zimo gave no reply. He simply stood there, silently watching as the 10,000 dragons devoured his figure. Then, with a wave of his hand, the rift to the divine state continent opened once more, and countless dragon gods roared back through it, returning to the god world. The figure of the proud dragon ancestor had already vanished. Retracting his gaze, Zimo once more strode toward the south. The Nine Suns Wanderer was the ancestor of the pure Yang sacred ground. In the Overlord region, he was a renowned figure. At this moment, he was battling against Blade Maniac and his wife. This husband and wife seemed to have cultivated a combined technique, and together they could stand against the Nine Suns Wanderer evenly. "Blade Maniac, we have no enmity. Why must you stubbornly fight for an academy unrelated to you?" the Nine Suns Wanderer asked. "This was once where I studied. How could it be unrelated?" Blade Maniac replied flatly. He wielded the blood-drinking crazy blade. His style was fierce, ruthless, and famed for his suicidal, vicious angles of attack. "I never said I wanted to destroy the Heavenly Tao Academy. I only seek a few items from the Hall of Laws. Once I have them, I will leave immediately. How about that?" the Nine Suns Wanderer asked. "Silence, shameless old thief. Today my wife and I shall cut you down here," Blade Maniac said coldly. "In that case, this old man will be impolite." The Nine Suns Wanderer's eyes darkened. Around his body, 9 blazing suns soared into the sky. They became burning fireballs, incinerating the void. Even the air turned into wisps of white smoke. 9 suns, once said to be the edge of heaven and earth, symbolizing endlessness. At dawn, they rose from the East Valley. At dusk, they set at the ends of the 9 suns. With a low shout, the 9 Suns Wanderer declared, "9 suns, the boundary of heaven and earth." The 9 suns shone down, fierce light reflecting on his face. Blazing flames surged forth. "Be careful," Blade Maniac warned his wife. Though the couple was strong, they were still juniors compared to him. The 9 Suns Wanderer had once followed the pure Yang Emperor in contending for heaven's will, founding the pure Yang sacred ground. He was not one to be easily defeated. From the first sun leapt a tiger wreathed in flames, its expression twisted, flames raging around it. Looking closely, it was no tiger at all, but one of the ferocious beasts, Qiongqi. Qiongqi, resembling a tiger, yet the size of a bull, with wings on its back, fond of devouring humans. On its forehead grew faint golden dragon horns, its mouth like a hawk's beak, a true great feral beast. Kill her. The Nine Suns Wanderer ordered the Cheongchi, pointing at Sword Wuhan. The next moment, the Cheongchi roared and lunged at her. Its massive body carried an aura of savage ferocity, flames surging around it. Blade Maniac tried to intervene but was blocked by the Nine Suns Wanderer. With a sinister smile, he said, "Don't worry, I have prepared something better for you." As he spoke, another beast's roar shook the air. From the void between the Nine Suns, a rift was torn open. A vermilion hoof stretched out first. Then came the overwhelming beastly might as a crimson Qilin slowly walked through the rift. Scarlet Blood Qilin. Seeing it, Blade Maniac cried out in alarm. "Nine Suns, why summon me?" The Scarlet Blood Qilin asked lazily, glancing at the Nine Suns Wanderer. "To deal with someone," the Nine Suns Wanderer replied. "Not interested." The Scarlet Blood Qilin shook its head and turned to leave through the rift. "One white turtle carrying immortal herb," the Nine Suns Wanderer said abruptly. 3. The Qilin froze mid-step. 2. The Nine Suns Wanderer said, his heart aching. The white turtle carrying immortal was one of the divine medicines of immortality, said to be imperishable through calamities, eternal and incorruptible. The Nine Suns Wanderer had spent his life collecting immortal herbs. The Scarlet Blood Qilin had coveted it for a long time. If it weren't for desperation, he would never have paid such a steep price. The Qilin turned, its dark pupils staring at Blade Maniac with a mocking glint. "So it's this boy. Block him for me. Kill him if you can," the Nine Suns Wanderer said coldly. Paying such a heavy price left his heart full of bitterness. Turning, he gazed at the Hall of Laws before him. All laws within one hall. It was said the Hall of Laws at Heavenly Tao Academy collected every immortal law in the primordial heartlands. Of course, it was only legend, since so few had ever qualified to enter it. The Nine Suns Wanderer stepped slowly toward the hall's gates. This hall, not grand nor splendid, even somewhat old and worn, stood silently there. From the outside, no one would ever imagine what truly important things were hidden inside. As Nine Suns Wanderer stepped closer and closer to the Hall of Laws, his figure suddenly stopped at the doorway. The sound of footsteps echoed. Su Zimo walked out from a side path. "Oh, quite lively here," Su Zimo said with a smile when he saw the scene in front of him. "And who might you be?" Nine Suns Wanderer frowned and asked. "Don't be nervous. I'm just here to watch the show." Su Zimo waved his hand casually and replied, "Courting death." Nine Suns Wanderer snorted coldly. He raised his right hand, and one of the suns hanging at the edge of the sky transformed into a meteorite, hurling straight toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo extended his right fist, the power of creation spreading from it, and punched fiercely forward. With a loud boom, the entire sky shook violently. The massive sun was shattered into pieces by Su Zimo's single punch. Su Zimo twisted his neck and said with a smile, "Is that all?" Nine Suns Wanderer's expression grew more serious. Flames surged around his body, and the sun that had just been shattered by Su Zimo reformed once again in the void. Dance of fire across 9 heavens. Nine Suns Wanderer raised his right hand and gently swept across the air. All 9 suns erupted at once, transforming into 9 soaring wind cranes. The wind cranes resembled phoenixes, their wings vast and radiant, their bodies golden red. Their wings, immense enough to blot out the sky, overlapped with elegant symmetry. Their feathers gleamed like polished glass, drifting smoothly. But their beaks were sharp, and their eyes burned with fire. The 9 cranes, graceful yet deadly, swooped down from above, weaving together a boundless sea of flames, attacking Su Zimo in unison. Su Zimo lifted his head slightly, stepped back with his right foot, and his body became a streak of light, soaring into the heavens. His figure flickered, leaving countless afterimages across the sky. Back when he had gone to the Eternal Continent, he had learned a technique from the 9 Heavens Imperial sect called a speck in the vast sea. The ocean is vast, boundless, stretching beyond sight, and a drop merely a speck within it. At this moment, Suzimo extended his right hand, and a crystalline droplet of water appeared in his palm. Ocean, Suzimo said in a low voice. The droplet fell into the void, instantly expanding into endless rivers. The sea surged, waves overwhelming, engulfing the 9 fiery cranes that swooped toward him. Seeing this, Nine Suns Wanderer frowned slightly. "Overwhelm it," he shouted. The 9 fiery cranes burned even more fiercely, their flames swelling as they began to suppress the ocean. The cranes cried in unison, dancing across the heavens. Witnessing this, Nine Suns Wanderer roared again. Blazing form of star heaven. The flames surging across the cranes' bodies condensed into the shape of a giant. It was said that in ancient times there was a divine being named Star Heaven. He wielded a colossal axe, stood as tall as mountains, his eyes could spit fire, and his limbs were as tough as black gold. His strength was immeasurable. He could cleave sun and moon with his axe, and mountains crumbled beneath his feet. Suzimo frowned and snorted coldly. The ocean in his hand surged with even greater force. But the giant Star Heaven raised his massive axe and brought it down. The waves, towering tens of thousands of feet, were split open by sheer force. "Aren't you done yet?" A woman's voice in white suddenly spoke from the side. She stepped lightly on a white lotus, smiling as she asked, "Do you want me to help?" "No need." Suzimo shook his head. The power vortexes within his body spun wildly. A colossal giant of heaven appeared, striding across the void, confronting the giant Star Heaven. "Don't be so quick to finish it," the woman in white said calmly. "No matter whether you ascend to immortality in the future, or carry the heavens will to become an emperor, you will inevitably deal with nomological truths. You might as well feel his profundity now." The so-called nomological truths had many types, though Suzimo knew little about them. But Nine Suns Wanderer's truth was clearly fire. Before, when fighting immortals, Suzimo had relied purely on strength. He hadn't thought much beyond that. But with the white-clad woman's reminder, when he extended his divine sense and truly tried to comprehend it, he sensed something different. It was a world of flames. Close your eyes and it was void. Open them and it all dispersed again. At a glance, it was just burning gold-red fire. But if one truly concentrated, those flames separated into countless floating truths across the void. As Suzimo sought to observe more closely, suddenly endless flames surged toward him, jolting him back to reality. At this moment, the heaven-shattering giant was pressing Star Heaven down, and Suzimo frowned slightly. From that force, he had felt a tremor in his own body. "You saw it?" the woman in white asked beside him. Suzimo nodded thoughtfully. Seeing the two of them treating him as if he didn't exist, Nine Suns Wanderer grew furious. The giant Star Heaven roared, but was soon slapped down by the heaven-shattering giant. Then the giant stormed into the flock of cranes, tearing one in half with a casual swipe. The cranes cried in panic, chaos breaking loose. "Enough!" Nine Suns Wanderer shouted in anger. With a wave of his right hand, the cranes dissipated. Around him, 9 blazing suns soared to the heavens. 9 suns refining the heavens. Chains coiled around his body, each chain connected to one of the 9 suns. The entire sky was dyed red by the flames. The 9 suns vanished into the void. 9 Suns Wanderer's roar echoed across the empty heavens. "9 suns, you're mad!" The scarlet-blooded Qilin cried in shock nearby. "Run, run as far as you can," 9 Suns Wanderer bellowed. In truth, when the woman in white first descended, he had already sensed the overwhelming aura emanating from her and realized what fate awaited him. The clinking of chains echoed from his body. He had played with fire all his life, which is why he was known as 9 Suns Wanderer. But now, when golden, thick flames from the 9 suns surged down the chains into his body, he had no power to resist at all. He was burned to ash instantly. 10 suns in the sky," the woman in white said, enunciating each word. The world itself already had a sun. Now, with the 9 blazing suns of 9 Suns Wanderer, there were 10. And these 10 suns opposed each other in the sky, even restraining one another. In the desolate era, the world suffered a great drought. The sky held many blazing suns, and all living things suffered in agony. Countless beings burned themselves alive at that time. The woman in white said lightly, "Now this sight is not unlike that ancient calamity. Hot, unbearably hot." This was Su Zimo's most direct feeling. The sky showed no sun, only a sheet of crimson. Endless clouds of fire churned overhead. For a moment, it seemed as if even the sea itself could be evaporated. Everyone felt extreme thirst, the moisture on their skin evaporating rapidly. Their blood vessels and parched flesh could be clearly seen. Su Zimo slightly raised his head. In his right hand, pale white spirit force gathered, endless and inexhaustible. The entire void began to tremble. Since this is merely an illusion of a nomological truth, then I'll shatter it with a single punch, Su Zimo chuckled. If this truly were 10 suns in the sky, dictated by the laws of heaven and earth, then he truly would have no way. But this so-called 10 suns was merely a nomological truth conjured by an immortal far from that level. As long as one's power was strong enough, it could be broken. Keep an eye on that scarlet blood Qilin for me. I want it, Su Zimo said to the white-robed woman. Then his figure moved at light speed, directly striking toward the heavens. Boundless waves of force gathered around his fist. The dazzling light overhead made it impossible to keep one's eyes open. This punch gathered nearly all the power within Su Zimo. It contained the power of creation, demonic energy, and the surging spirit force of heaven and earth. With a loud boom, an unprecedented explosion erupted in the void. It was as if someone had smashed a fist against one's ear, producing a brief ringing. The thick layers of fire clouds above shattered in the rolling turbulence. The crimson sky rippled like a stormy sea, sending out massive waves. With this punch, he blasted open a gaping hole in the sky. The overwhelming 10 suns were swallowed and drowned within. The roar of the scarlet blood Qilin echoed nearby. But with the white lotus of the white-robed woman suppressing it, it could not escape. When Su Zimo's figure descended from the heavens, the crimson sky gradually returned to blue. The one true sun remained hidden behind the clouds. For the real sun was millions of miles away from the primordial heartlands. What his punch shattered were only the 9 false suns. As for the real one, Su Zimo had no power to touch it yet. What do you want it for? Don't tell me you're planning to use it as a mount, the white-robed woman asked, glancing at him. Su Zimo looked at the scarlet blood Qilin and shook his head slightly. He already had the god-beast Chaos, so naturally he lacked nothing else. He only wished for the Qilin to join his myriad beast realm. As for how it would be made to submit, that would be left to Chaos and the others to handle. Su Zimo couldn't be bothered. With a wave of his right hand, he tore open the spatial barrier of the god world and sent the scarlet blood Qilin inside. You dream if you think I will submit. The Qilin race will never be mounts for others, came the furious roar of the scarlet blood Qilin from within. Where did you send it? The white-robed woman asked curiously. A particle world I used to store things, Su Zimo replied with a smile. In truth, once cultivators reached a certain realm, they could create their own particle worlds. But such a so-called particle world was merely a simple space, not a complete world. A true world had to be like Su Zimo's god world, with sun and moon, cycles of day and night, primal chaos of yin and yang, and the mysterious essence of heaven and earth. It needed thriving life, endless vitality, self-reproduction and rebirth, all beings forming a virtuous cycle. What's more, Su Zimo could go further, reviving spirit force and making the world grow stronger. Aren't you afraid that scarlet blood Qilin has already stepped into the undying immortal realm? Won't it destroy your particle world? The white-robed woman asked with a laugh. For most cultivators, their particle worlds weren't very large. They used them occasionally to store things more convenient than a storage ring, since these particle worlds held no potential for development. Others, having seen through the mortal world, might create larger ones. They would place their families and friends inside to live peacefully, away from worldly troubles. but such cases were rare. To be honest, my particle world is as large as the Overlord region, Suzimo answered. Hearing this, the white-robed woman froze. The primordial heartlands were divided into 5 great continents, with the middle continent further divided into 5 regions. For a particle world to be so vast was astonishing. Most people's particle worlds were no larger than a city or a few cities. I once had a fortuitous encounter. I fused with a particle world that was on the verge of collapse, Suzimo explained with a smile. Useless in most ways, but it is very large. Then you are indeed fortunate. The white-robed woman smiled lightly, not questioning further. Such things were rare indeed. Suzimo nodded slightly. In fact, he revealed this to the white-robed woman because he had his own plan. Though that plan would only matter later. He wasn't the type to discuss his god world for no reason. Plant the seed now and it would one day bloom. Greetings, Dean. The Blade Maniac couple arrived, bowing to the white-robed woman. This time the Academy has faced great tribulation. It is rare and commendable for the two of you to come to aid. The white-robed woman smiled. It is only our duty. We will never forget the Academy's kindness. Blade Maniac replied with a shake of his head. I must go suppress that sky-blue demon rock. The Academy is in chaos, with all sorts of demons and creatures appearing. The outside must be left to the two of you to stabilize. The white-robed woman said. We will obey the Dean's orders. Blade Maniac replied solemnly, his voice firm. Let's go, the white-robed woman said after giving instructions, turning to Suzimo. Suzimo nodded slightly, and the two of them stepped into the air, flying toward the inner courtyard of the Heavenly Tao Academy. The sky above the inner courtyard was unlike the rest. Dark gray fiend force enveloped that heaven and earth. The closer they drew to the inner courtyard, the stronger the demonic power became. The strength was awe-inspiring. You cannot suppress me. The day I break this seal will be the end for you all. A furious roar echoed from the inner courtyard. The world filled with flying sand and stones, a shroud of darkness. Even from some distance away, Suzimo could already feel its oppressive pressure. His long hair fluttered in the demonic wind. The white-robed woman's gaze turned cold. She pointed lightly with her right hand. Countless white lotuses appeared, forming a path before them. Suzimo instantly felt the pressure vanish, his body relaxing. Let's go, the white-robed woman said with a smile. The two arrived at the very center of the inner courtyard. There, in addition to the 10 ancestral masters of the Heavenly Tao Academy, stood over a dozen elders. Each stood in a precise formation. A round cage like a prison stood upon the earth. Around it was nothing but gray, gloomy demonic winds. Inside the cage, the figure of the sky-blue demon rock was trapped. Its claws scraped against the cage, its wings beat furiously, but the cage seemed to carry a mysterious force. Every time it touched the cage, it was flung back down. You trash, let this king out now, and I might grant you a quicker death later. The 10 founders are long gone. You cannot hold me, so why waste your time? You there, blind man, I'm talking to you. Hurry up and release this king. And you, old relic, can you hear me? I'm talking to you. Just as Suzimo stepped into the inner courtyard, he heard the sky-blue demon rock shouting and cursing. Suzimo couldn't help but chuckle. This didn't look like a demonic king at all. More like some street shrew screaming insults. Well, 2 more have arrived. Is this the appetizer before the feast? When it saw Suzimo and the woman in white approaching, the sky-blue demon rock shouted again. This little lass looks good. Once I get out, maybe I'll spare her life, take her back and train her. Founder, how goes it? The woman in white stepped forward and asked. Little girl, who is he? One of the elders looked toward Suzimo, frowning. He came to help. His strength is considerable, the woman replied. I brought him. In this defense of Heavenly Tao Academy, his contribution has been the greatest. Fine then, let him stay aside and not interfere with the ceiling. The elder waved his hand. This sky-blue demon rock's strength surpasses what we imagined. We thought we could seal it for a day, but now it looks like at most 12 hours before this cage shatters. Then let us begin the sealing quickly, the woman in white said with a frown. She raised her right hand, and a transparent bottle appeared within it. Inside the bottle seemed to be the starry rivers of the heavens. Stars sparkled. The Milky Way flowed in reverse. It contained a resplendent, dazzling, magnificent starry sky. Whoever looked at it would sigh in admiration. Beautiful. The Nine Sky Deep Force is ready. Please, founders, act, she said. Good. The blind founder nodded slightly. At the sight of the Nine Sky Deep Force, the sky blue demon rock's face changed. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you, don't come near me. When this king goes mad, even I strike myself. Even I fear myself. Hearing the rock's furious ranting, Su Zimo rubbed his forehead. This so-called demon king was truly shocking in all the wrong ways. Can you shut the hell up? One of the elders, growing impatient at the nagging, snapped. Shut your mother. Try being sealed for millions of years with no one to talk to, not a single word exchanged for ages. You try it. When I get you later, I'll rant at you until you die. At these words, the elder's face shifted slightly, but he restrained his anger. Truth be told, his heart was unsettled, because none of them were sure they could truly subdue the sky blue demon rock. With a bang, the bottle shattered, and the Nine Sky Deep Force spilled out, releasing immense might. Though only a few drops, the power within them shattered the very void. Those few drops scattered into the void, as if trying to escape. The blind founder waved his hand, and an immense surge of spiritual energy bound those drops. The sky blue demon rock's true body is condensed of Nine Sky Fiend Force. Suppress the Fiend Force, and it will be suppressed as well, the blind founder said. Another founder, with immortal bearing and long white beard, gently stroked his whiskers. He waved his hand, and his hair and beard lengthened hundreds of meters, covering the heavens. Transform fiend into purity, endless swamp of heaven and earth. When chaos first divided, Yin and Yang split dawn from dusk. The 10 founders of Heavenly Tao Academy all stood calm, their hands forming seals. None paid any mind to the myriad demon cage itself. Heaven and earth boundless, the grand Tao unseen. Nine Sky Deep Force, follow my will, unite. With each chant, the Nine Sky Deep Force above grew more terrifying. It surged, filling the sky. Within it, faintly, the 8 trigrams appeared. Each corresponded to heaven and earth, yin and yang, and the 5 elements. The ancients encompassed all phenomena. Looking up, they observed the stars. Looking down, the patterns of earth. From the self they drew close lessons, from afar they took examples. The virtue of yin and yang in heaven and earth, the calamities of myriad beings. Now, with the world unbalanced and fiend force surging skyward, we take Nine Sky Deep Force to harmonize yin and yang, to suppress the demon king. The Nine Sky Deep Force above evolved into a circular ceiling diagram. What are you doing? The sky blue demon rock shouted from below. Release me, and we'll write off our enmity. Descend, the blind founder commanded. With a thunderous boom, the circular diagram spun and fell downward. The moment it touched the myriad demon cage, a force spread out, like a seed planted in soil, sprouting wildly and fiercely. The ceiling diagram carried immense power, trying to cover the sky blue demon rock. The rock's towering body began to hunch under its weight. As the ceiling diagram sank further into its body, the onlookers grew excited. It worked! The blind founder exclaimed, trembling. Don't you think you're celebrating too soon? At that moment, a sinister voice came from within, followed by wild laughter. The sky blue demon rock leaned against the cage, clutching its belly in laughter. It looked utterly ridiculous, but no one around could laugh. They all stared in shock. The Nine Sky Deep Force doesn't work? How could this be? Wasn't its true body formed of fiend force? Nine Sky Deep Force and fiend force are natural opposites. How could this be? As they questioned, the sky blue demon rock straightened its enormous form. In that instant, beastly might swept across the heavens. the skies roiling in storm. The cage that had bound it was torn apart with a single claw. "What is happening?" the blind founder asked, face grim. "Though I don't care to answer, I can't help but say a few words," the sky blue demon rock sneered. "You think, in all these millions of years I've been sealed, that I never considered you'd use 9 sky deep force against me? Long ago I altered my true body. Now my body is not fiend force. It is the true body of the rock. Demon rock physique?" Hearing the sky blue demon rock's words, the white-robed woman frowned slightly. "You should still remember, right? My true body was not just 9 heavens fiend force, but also the beast essence glazed heart left behind by the golden-winged rock. In the past, it was the fiend force that dominated, with the glazed heart assisting. Now I let the glazed heart take the lead, and the fiend force assist. Naturally, this 9 sky deep force is useless to me." "No, impossible, impossible." A nearby elder shook his head with a pale face, unwilling to believe the truth before his eyes. If that was really the case, then the fate of the Heavenly Tao Academy and their own lives were all doomed. "Speak. How do you all want to die?" the demon rock asked indifferently. "Will it be like me, sealed for countless ages, finally dying in solitude? Or directly killed outright? Aren't you all forgetting something?" Su Zimo's voice suddenly came from the side, instantly drawing everyone's attention. "No matter whether fiend force is dominant or subordinate, it cannot exist apart from fiend force. Since there is fiend force, then the 9 sky deep force should still be effective. The difference is only in how effective it is." Hearing Su Zimo's words, everyone finally realized. Yes, this demon king is lying to us. The people nearby came to their senses, and even the demon rock's expression changed. "Try it," Blind Sage quickly said. His left hand formed a seal, invisible energies coiling around his hands. "Explode." With a wave of his hands, the demon rock let out a howl, its massive body collapsing to the ground and rolling violently. Countless buildings around them toppled. "Brat, you're finished. This king remembers you." The demon rock roared angrily. "It worked!" The people around cried out in delight. Everyone, suppressed together, the immortal-bearing elder shouted. The 10 founders once again formed seals, while the others supported the suppression array, channeling spiritual energy ceaselessly into the 10 founders' control. This sky blue demon rock is truly cunning, suppressing the 9 sky deep force within its body, so we couldn't detect it at first. Otherwise, we really would have fallen for its trick. Someone coldly snorted. As the 9 sky deep force was once more directed, the suppression art was activated. At this moment, the demon rock's body surged like overturning seas. Fiend force and 9 sky deep force clashed violently inside it. Like ice and raging fire, one side had to be either frozen or fused. "Ancestor, what should we do?" the white-robed woman asked from the side. The suppression art was already activated. No one else could simply intervene in the formation. The Tao of formations is the variation of the cosmos. It cannot tolerate even the slightest mistake. A shift in one position could trigger earth-shaking changes, especially for such immense formations. "Leave the academy," Blind Sage sighed. "Ancestor, why?" Some elders who didn't grasp the situation asked in shock. The demon rock had already been temporarily suppressed. By reason, shouldn't they seal it again? The demon king was right, it has long since transformed its body. The demon rock body dominates, the so-called fiend force is merely secondary. Blind Sage sighed. Now the 9 sky deep force still has some effect, but to seal it is impossible. Once this 9 sky deep force is exhausted, that will be the day it breaks free. How could it be like this? Even the white-robed woman felt troubled. "Before this demon king escapes, arrange for everyone to leave here," Blind Sage ordered. As everyone fell into despair, the demon king's laughter echoed in the empty courtyard. Su Zimo lightly coughed. "Ahem. I say, everyone." He had only spoken half a sentence before the demon rock interrupted. "Brat, shut up. Nothing good ever comes from your mouth. But actually, I do have a way to solve this." Su Zimo's voice sounded, startling everyone again. What way? Before the white-robed woman could speak, Blind Sage asked first. Do you still remember the particle world I told you about? Su Zimo looked at the white-robed woman. He said, I previously fused with a nearly destroyed particle world left behind by a strong cultivator. That particle world exists outside the primordial heartlands, usually drifting within the space barrier. Now only I can open that particle world, and I hold absolute control over it. What do you mean? The white-robed woman asked thoughtfully. Since it can't be killed, and it can't be sealed, why not exile it into that particle world? Su Zimo smiled. Once it enters that particle world within the space barrier, it can't come back. Even if it breaks through the particle world, it can't break through Primordial Heartlands' space barrier. Su Zimo was not wrong. Although Primordial Heartlands was only a great world, it could not be broken by a Nirvana Void Realm cultivator. At the very least, it required a Grand Emperor to begin with. Su Zimo had previously gone to the Eternal Lands only because its space barrier was weak, and he was swept there by space turbulence. By his own strength alone, it was impossible. I knew you brat had no good intentions, full of bad ideas. The demon rock's voice came from the side. It roared, Brat, when this king gets out, the first one I'll kill is you. Is that truly possible? Blind Sage and the others were still hesitant. Try it. Do you have any better choice? Su Zimo asked. The reason he told the white-robed woman about his particle world earlier was precisely in preparation for this demon rock. A Nirvana Void God beast. Just thinking about it was exciting. Once it entered God World, with Paimon and Seven Face there, and the whole world under his control, the demon rock would not be able to cause chaos. I know your motives aren't pure. The white-robed woman looked at Su Zimo. You're not one to do business at a loss. But if you really can help us, the Heavenly Tao Academy will owe you a great debt. Then let's hurry. While the Nine Sky Deep Force still restrains it, everyone work together to send it inside, Blind Sage said. Su Zimo's eyes narrowed slightly, his right hand waved. At the side, a rift tore open. What tore was not Primordial Heartlands' space barrier, but God World's space barrier. Once opened, they could send the demon rock inside. But the demon rock's resistance was powerful. Su Zimo alone was not enough. He needed the help of all the Academy's founders. In the white-robed woman's eyes, a mysterious power surged. A lotus of immense size blossomed below, covering the sky. The whole sky seemed to be raining. But upon close inspection, those were not raindrops, but countless small white lotuses. White lotus rain was a more fitting description. The furious roar of the sky-blue demon rock echoed out, but this time there was a hint of panic in its voice. It did not want to be banished, so it resisted with all its might. The massive lotus flower, illuminated by the falling white lotus rain, wrapped tightly around its enormous body. Rise. As more and more spirit force poured in, the demon rock's huge form began to float slowly upward, pushed toward the rift. But it still fought violently. Its sharp seedaws tore at the lotus, the two golden horns atop its head radiating terrifying power. Flames, lightning, and countless elemental forces burst outward. At that moment, everyone noticed that the white lotus wrapping around it was gradually turning black. In just an instant, half the lotus had become pitch black. This is the Tao of Death, the woman in the white dress said in shock. Stop it quickly. Don't let it use the Tao of Death, otherwise my lotus won't hold. The Taos were divided into many kinds. The 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, as well as wind, thunder, light, darkness, ice. These were minor Taos. But above these minor Taos were grand Taos, life, death, spirit, destruction, curse, even time and space. These grand Taos were far harder to comprehend, and their power far exceeded the minor Taos. Hearing her words, the crowd grew solemn. The blind sage wielded his long staff, smashing it down toward the demon rock's head. The staff spun several times in his hand, buzzing as the vibrations tore through space. Then, with a deafening boom, It struck the rock squarely on the skull. The others didn't dare hesitate either. A 5-clawed golden dragon soared from the sky. Freezing snow sealed the land for miles. A flaming lion roared its way forward, while a giant axe split the heavens. The 10 founders all unleashed their powers, striking at once to stop the demon rock from using the Tao of Death to destroy the White Lotus. "You all deserve death," the rock bellowed from within the lotus. "World-purifying White Lotus." The white-dressed woman's voice, hoarse yet powerful, drowned out its roar. Endless streams of white spirit force surged from her body, linking directly with the enormous lotus. A sacred aura flowed within it. "The Tao of Divinity?" Sensing this, the demon rock shouted in horror. "You too have stepped into immortality." Meanwhile, above them, the heavens darkened as thunderclouds gathered, lightning ripping apart the demonic aura. Heavenly tribulation descended, ready to obliterate the land, its power vast and merciless. "Hurry!" Sensing the heavenly calamity, the white-dressed woman shouted, "My tribulation is not yet past. If I use the Tao's power too long, it will force me into tribulation. We'll all die here." Everyone's expressions grew grim. Su Zimo remembered she had explained before. Stepping into the Nirvana Void Realm required 2 steps. First, turning nomological truths into primal Taos. This she had already accomplished. But without enduring the tribulation, it was only half a step. The tribulation was crucial, and without full preparation, she had no intention of facing it now. "Together, push it into the rift," the blind sage commanded. With the Tao of Divinity countering the Tao of Death, and everyone's combined effort, the demon rock's massive body was finally forced inch by inch into the rift leading to the God world. "You wait. One day this king will return," the rock roared in fury from within. But with a wave of Su Zimo's hand, the spatial wall slammed shut. The demonic aura and storm clouds gradually dissipated, leaving only the battlefield in ruins. When the sky-blue demon rock was thrust into the God world, its nirvana void cultivation allowed it to sense a world's Taos directly. It discovered this was nothing like what Su Zimo had claimed, not some collapsing world on the verge of destruction, but instead, a complete world, with perfect Taos and abundant spirit force. His heart trembled, unwilling to believe. Complete world. It understood all too well what such a thing meant. "Welcome to the God world." A voice suddenly came from the side. The demon rock turned quickly, seeing Paimon and Seven-Face standing there. Shockingly, it hadn't sensed their presence at all until now. "Who are you?" it demanded. "You'll know in time," Paimon replied with a grin. "But for now, our master has ordered me to teach you a lesson before giving you answers." That day, the anguished screams of the sky-blue demon rock echoed endlessly throughout the myriad beast realm. "It won't come back, right?" After the rock was sent away, a weary elder collapsed onto the ground with a sigh of relief. "It shouldn't." Su Zimo shook his head. "This time our Heavenly Tao Academy owes you a great debt. In the future, if you need aid, as long as it's within our power, we will help," the blind sage told him. Su Zimo simply shook his head lightly. His real goal was the demon rock. As for the Academy's debt, that was just a convenient side effect. After finishing, the blind sage looked toward the woman in white again. "Now that the Demon King is dealt with, we will return to seclusion. In this crisis, remember well the students who stood by the Academy." "I will," she nodded. The 10 founders' figures slowly faded into the void. Unless the Academy faced destruction, they would not appear again. Now, the Academy was left entirely under the headmistress's authority. After such a war, there is much to rebuild. The white-dressed woman looked at Su Zimo with a faint smile. "I'll be very busy for some time." "I'm going to the treasure tower," Su Zimo replied directly. "No problem," she answered. "The token I gave you before grants you entry. No one will stop you." Waving his hand, Su Zimo walked straight toward the treasure tower. Watching his retreating back, the woman in white shook her head with a smile. I truly look forward to the day heavens will descend. At that moment, Pure Water was still keeping watch at the tower's gazebo. Seeing Su Zimo approach, she hurried to ask, "Are you all right?" "It's all been taken care of." Su Zimo shook his head. "That's good. That's good." Pure Water exhaled in relief, nodding. "Thank you again this time." Su Zimo took out the token and placed it on the chess table in the gazebo. As the token glowed brightly, the previously locked stalemate of black and white stones shifted in an instant. The black and white chess pieces turned into two black and white dragons, clashing in the center of the board. Dragon roars shook the air, and in that instant, the chessboard seemed to evolve into a small world, dim and chaotic, with ceaseless fighting. When the token was placed, the two battling dragons entwined and fused together. The dragons coiled, and suddenly space fell silent. A humming vibration sounded from the void, as though a portal had opened. A crack appeared in the void before Su Zimo. He stepped through the crack, and his figure vanished from the pavilion. Oh! His body felt weightless in the void, tumbling several times as he fell. Then the space before him began to twist, and in the next moment the scene shifted. He had arrived in a tower-like structure. The moment he entered, Su Zimo felt countless gazes fall upon him. Though he could not tell from where, he knew well enough that the Myriad Treasures Tower could not be guarded by only one person. If he had failed earlier and intruders had entered, those within would have been the second line of defense. Yet these people only watched him, not stopping him. So Su Zimo began to observe his surroundings. It resembled more a storied building, or rather a warehouse. But everything inside was arranged neatly and in order. Su Zimo walked down a wide aisle, glancing at the glowing labels on both sides. Beasts, secret arts, treasures, 5 elements, supreme items, sacred texts, mythic scrolls. The collection was vast, containing everything imaginable and unimaginable. There were Chilean phantoms walking on clouds, and even creatures like giant apes locked in cages. When Su Zimo passed, they snarled and roared at him. This place was both paradise and hell, everything fused together perfectly. Su Zimo searched for the 9-curve god flame. Eventually he reached the section of flames. The flames here were not ordinary sparks, but true fire seeds, the core essence from which fire propagated. Even the rarest divine flames were collected here, numbering in the hundreds. Each had different forms and colors. Some shifted shape endlessly, some even seemed alive. Finally, Su Zimo stopped before an ancient oil lamp. On the plaque before it were 4 characters clearly inscribed: 9-curve god flame. 9-curve god flame, the supreme divine flame for forging, said to have the most powerful effect of all. Any weapon forged with it would gain inherent attributes. Because its potential was so immense, it was said to be capable of refining weapons that defy the heavens. Without absolute strength, one must never attempt it. Reading the description and notes, Su Zimo chuckled. He placed his right hand upon the oil lamp. The lamp was from an ancient age. Judging from its weathered state, it must once have been a supreme treasure. But now, covered in dust, its value was forgotten. Without the flame within, few would even glance at it. Oh! The moment Su Zimo tried to draw out the divine flame, the once quiet fire suddenly erupted. Its calm slumber of tens of thousands of years was shattered. The 9-curve god flame went berserk. Its tendrils burst forth with a power that could destroy the heavens and earth, endless and unyielding. Could hardly be extinguished. But Su Zimo was prepared. With a wave of his hand, the power of creation spread out, suppressing the divine flame. Though fierce, the fire was ownerless, lashing out only by instinct. Bit by bit, Su Zimo pulled it from the lamp and stored it within the god world. That world had now become his storage space. Having taken the flame, Su Zimo left Myriad Treasures Tower. The gazes upon him gradually faded. Stepping out, he once again returned to the pavilion outside. Pure Water was already gone. Su Zimo looked into the distance and set out toward Vermilion Bird Island. For forging weapons, he had the Supreme God Hammer and the 9-curve God Flame. but he himself did not truly understand the art. Forging and alchemy were ancient, complex crafts. Rock Solid was the perfect person for this task. His heritage as a stone race member and his mastery of forging placed him at the peak. When Su Zimo reached the island, Venerable Nu was already waiting. "Teacher," Su Zimo greeted respectfully, "you're unharmed." He glanced at the red-robed Venerable. Though his complexion was ruddy and healthy, Su Zimo still caught the faint scent of blood. "It's nothing. You've returned because you need something, haven't you?" The Venerable smiled. "I seek Senior Brother Rock Solid. I want his help to forge a weapon," Su Zimo replied. "I'll take you," the Venerable nodded. They returned to the forge where Rock Solid, unusually, was not hammering but dismantling weapons to reforge them. "In the battle, many weapons were lost," Rock Solid said with a smile as they arrived. "They may not be priceless, but I couldn't bear to see them discarded, so I've collected them." "Senior Brother, I'll be direct," Su Zimo said. "I'd like your help to forge a weapon." "No problem. For the debt we stone race owe you, forget one weapon, even 10 or 100, I would forge without hesitation," Rock Solid said solemnly. Without Su Zimo, the stone race would not exist as they did today, nor would he. That debt could not be repaid with a single weapon. "But I must warn you, this weapon is no ordinary one. It may attract heavenly tribulation," Su Zimo added. "The smith's life may even be at risk. I cannot guarantee safety." "I understand. If it were ordinary, you wouldn't seek me," Rock Solid laughed. "If we are to forge such a weapon, I'll take you to a place," Venerable Nu said. "What place?" Rock Solid teased. "Surely not the Weapon Mountain?" "Yes, the Weapon Mountain." The Venerable nodded seriously. Rock Solid froze for a moment, then said in surprise, "But as far as I know, the Weapon Mountain is forbidden. That is Academy law. Rules are dead, men are alive." The Venerable smiled. "The living cannot be bound by dead rules. With the merits Zimo earned in this war, not just Weapon Mountain, even 10 of them would not be too much. Some debts cannot be repaid so simply." Hearing the words of Venerable Nu, Rock Solid nodded in agreement. It was like how Zimo had saved the stone race. Such a debt could not be repaid with just 1 or 2 deeds. "What Weapon Mountain are you guys talking about?" Zimo asked in confusion. "Why does it sound so mysterious to me?" "Weapon Mountain is a very famous structure of our Heavenly Tao Academy," Rock Solid quickly explained. "Legend has it that long ago, one of the Academy's 10 sages, the Sage of Forging, once refined a supreme divine weapon there. The runes of the divine weapon were engraved into the very earth. From then on, whenever a forging master of the Academy sat in death, they would choose that place, treating it as sacred ground. And whenever there was a masterless divine weapon, it too would be buried within that mountain." "But what does that have to do with forging?" Zimo asked. "Listen, over time, more and more divine weapons and more fallen masters of forging gathered there. Through long accumulation, a unique aura of purity was born. Yes, this aura of purity can increase the success rate of forging by at least 30%, Venerable Nu added. And if heavenly tribulation descends, the aura of purity can lessen its power. That I've never heard of." "Interesting," Zimo said with a smile. "However, even though the aura of purity is powerful, Weapon Mountain is also the place where countless seniors sat in death. So the Academy forbids others from forging there, so as not to disturb them," Rock Solid explained. "But in this special situation, I believe the Dean will agree." "Then let's go," Zimo nodded. At this time, Heavenly Tao Academy had just survived a great war. They had to face external enemies, reorganize the Academy after the death of the ancestors of imperial lineages, and rebuild many ruins that had collapsed. As the Dean, the woman in white naturally was the busiest of all. When Zimo and the others came to her, she pondered for a moment, then agreed. "Go. But if possible, don't break the peace there." The group left the inner courtyard of the Academy and headed straight south. Venerable Nu knew the road, so he led the way. As they went further south, The buildings before them gradually disappeared. Pavilions and towers gave way to forest. Weeds grew everywhere, some taller than the people themselves, giving an air of desolation. Because this area was near Weapon Mountain, few people ever came. After the war of the Heavenly Tao Academy, this place had remained one of the most intact. "Look there," Venerable Nu pointed ahead. "That is Weapon Mountain." Zimo looked into the distance and saw at the edge of his vision a towering peak. It was not quite piercing the clouds, but it was still very grand. The shape of the entire mountain looked at times like a sword, sometimes like a staff, a spear, or a halberd. From different angles, one could see different meanings. But unique to it all was the aura of the mountain. It seemed to condense the intent of 10,000 weapons. Like the myriad weapons physique that Zimo had encountered before, where all weapon intent was gathered into one. But that was 1 in 10,000, a rare battle physique. Weapon Mountain, in truth, was nothing more than a resting place of weapons. Sometimes Zimo could not help but marvel at the uncanny craftsmanship of the world. As the group drew closer to Weapon Mountain, they could clearly see on the mountain itself. Broken swords, long spears, and all kinds of weapons were thrust into the ridges. Some were half-buried, the exposed parts weathered by sun and rain, their colors changed. Many more weapons were completely buried in the mountain. When the three of them set foot on Weapon Mountain, they immediately felt like thorns were pricking their backs. It was as though something terrifying had fixed its gaze on them. From soul to flesh, it gave them an uneasy feeling. "Don't worry, don't hold any hostility. Just head straight for the peak," Venerable Nu reminded them. The three climbed along a mountain path toward the top. The Drunken Rain Sword, 3 feet long, was the sword of the Drunken Rain Swordsman. With its strike, wind and thunder shook, wine and song filled the world. Later, when the swordsman sat in death here, the sword never left its sheath again. As they walked, whenever they passed famous weapons, Venerable Nu would explain to the others. The Sunfire Spear, once the signature weapon of the Sunfire Sage. One Sunfire Spear in hand, no friend was left unshaken across the land. The dragon-binding chain, able to leap among the stars, dive into seas of serpents, feared by ghosts. It was the proudest creation of the weapon master Yu Zicheng. Venerable Nu's voice continued as they went up the mountain, retelling stories that had long been buried and forgotten. There were many strong figures in this world, but most of them were eventually forgotten. Because the world only remembers those few who stand at the very top. All the others, if they do not reappear, are slowly erased from memory, lost to the dust of time. Half an hour later, the three reached the summit without incident. Weapon Mountain lay at the southern corner. From the top, one could see a quarter of the Heavenly Tao Academy spread out before them. Each of them looked at the view with different emotions. "Here will do," Venerable Nu instructed. "I and Zimo will guard. You do the forging. It must succeed." Rock Solid nodded heavily. For a forging master, to be able to forge a divine weapon was in itself a supreme honor. When Zimo took out the Supreme God Hammer and the 9-curve God Flame, the surrounding space began to shift. Zimo then took out the True God Sword, 5 fragments and the Sword Soul. "What a sword!" Rock Solid exclaimed. "The materials of this sword are almost unheard of. In all my years of forging, I have never seen a blade that could compare to this. No, not even compare. The ones I've made don't even have the qualification to stand beside it." Rock Solid held the sword in his hands as though gazing at a flawless piece of jade, his eyes shining. This sword was already forged long ago. It only shattered, and now it needs reforging, Zimo explained. "Nothing needs to be changed. Just restore it to its original form." "Rest assured," Rock Solid nodded firmly. "This sword will certainly become famous throughout the world. And it will be unique." Zimo just smiled and said nothing. He didn't care if the True God Sword became famous. He wanted it only to open the ancient celestial court, to serve as the key. After that, he would destroy it and use it to reforge Shadow Tyrant. Shadow Tyrant was his true love. Rock Solid sat cross-legged. He did not rush to begin forging. Instead, he closed his eyes, regulating his breath, letting his spirit, energy, and essence reach their ultimate state. Forging a weapon for a weapon refiner, one state was undoubtedly the most important. Suddenly, the moment Rock Solid opened his eyes, a sharp gleam flickered through them. A wave of spirit force was flowing away from his body. "Fire, come," he called lightly. The nine-curve god flame seemed to sense something and leapt on its own into his palm. The flames then began to spread wildly, enveloping Rock Solid's entire body. When the nine-curve god flame had become like his own limbs, able to be driven at will, Rock Solid finally lifted his right hand. He raised the fragments of the true god sword. The nine-curve god flame turned into a long dragon, directly swallowing the 5 fragments in one gulp. The sound of burning flames echoed through the air. Recasting the true god sword was a long and arduous task. Especially the true god sword, it was far more difficult than forging any ordinary weapon. Rock Solid controlled the temperature of the nine-curve god flame, not a trace too much or too little. This too was a test of his mastery over fire. Su Zimo did not rush. He and Venerable Nu sat at the edge of the mountain peak, letting the fierce winds blow against them. It was autumn. In the distance, maple trees swayed in the wind. A vast spread of crimson leaves drifted through the air, covering the ground in a thick layer. "When the sword is finished, you'll be leaving, won't you?" Venerable Nu asked. Su Zimo nodded slightly, smiling. "There's no meaning in staying here. I plan to look for some interesting matters." Venerable Nu lifted his right hand, pointing toward the distant sky. The heaven's will was growing ever larger, as though that section of the sky had been dyed over. Winds shifted, clouds churned, and storms of spirit force gathered. A storm was brewing, one fiercer than any before. It would determine the destiny of an entire era of the primordial heartlands. "You'll be going there, won't you?" Venerable Nu asked, pointing toward heaven's will's direction. Su Zimo nodded. "Be careful. Don't stumble in some gutter," Venerable Nu warned. "No matter when or where, never forget, you are a student who once walked out from Celestial Tao Academy." "How much do you know of the past?" Su Zimo asked. "The past? What do you mean?" "The founder of the desolate era," Su Zimo replied. "You mean the holy progenitor?" Venerable Nu was startled, then asked. It was well known that the history of the primordial heartlands was divided into 3 great periods: the legendary era, the desolate era, and the imperial era. The imperial era had been founded by the true martial celestial ground. In the records of history, the opening of the legendary era was already obscure, but it was ended by the war god, who brought the twilight of the gods. And the founder of the desolate era was the holy progenitor. In the Flower Valley, blossoms bloomed and withered again. The man who carried the true god sword walked out of the valley, and from then on opened an entire new age. He established the ancient celestial court, suppressed one era after another, and in the end vanished into the mists of history. What he left behind in the world was only the true god sword. "I have left all my treasures and secrets within the ancient celestial court, and the true god sword is the key to reaching it." From then on, this legend was passed down across the primordial heartlands. The man who tended the flowers was revered as the holy progenitor. As for his identity, later generations speculated endlessly. Some said he was the incarnation of the beast race. Otherwise, how could the beast race have flourished during the desolate era, suppressing all other races? Others said he was human, only that the holy progenitor had always been fair, never taking part in the struggles between races. The rise of the beast race, they claimed, had nothing to do with him. "You've asked the right person," Venerable Nu chuckled. "For a time, I specifically studied the history of our primordial heartlands. I've read through all the ancient records in the Academy." "Then do you know where the ancient celestial court lies?" Su Zimo asked. "You mean to go there?" Venerable Nu asked. When he saw Su Zimo nod, he continued, "Though I can't be 100% sure, by my estimate, the ancient celestial court should be within the Blood Rune domain." The place where the blood-rune beasts are sealed? Suzumo was slightly startled. He knew that if all went smoothly, the true God Sword would surely be reforged. But as for the location of the ancient celestial court, he still had no certainty, for he hadn't deeply studied the desolate era. So it seems even the holy progenitor had his little schemes. Suzumo laughed. Within the blood-rune domain, if one wanted to enter the ancient celestial court, one would first have to slay the blood-rune beasts guarding its periphery. Back when the war god ended the twilight of the gods, with no gods remaining, these blood-rune beasts had nearly ruled the entire world. Their strength needed no explanation. Even the holy progenitor's seal, it was only a matter of time before it would be broken. At this moment, Rock Solid had been using the 9-curve god flame to melt the fragments for nearly 7 hours. The sky overhead was gradually darkening. The fragments of the true God Sword were beginning to glow red-hot. "Divine Hammer!" Rock Solid called again, waving his right hand. The supreme God Hammer, bearing overwhelming might, descended into his grasp. He took the hammer and struck heavily upon the heated fragments. The sound of pounding, boom, 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 rang out above. Suzumo knew that this hammering was not to alter the true God Sword's appearance. It was to cleanse the impurities, reforging the cracks in the fragments, so that it could be made whole again. In the heavens, the moon shone bright and gentle. The autumn night was cool. Suzumo leaned against a massive boulder, watching Rock Solid's busy figure. As the hammering continued bit by bit, the 5 fragments fused once more, and the cracks upon them gradually disappeared. Rock Solid hammered for an entire night. By the time dawn broke the next day, a fire dragon suddenly soared into the sky. With a light cry from him, "Sword Soul, go!" The sword soul of the true God Sword was directly infused into the blade. All things have spirit. The sword soul was its essence. The moment the soul entered, the heavens seemed to sense something. The skies instantly shifted, winds and thunder transforming. Dark clouds replaced the blue sky and white clouds. Like a massive vortex, black clouds churned overhead, slowly rotating counterclockwise. Within that vortex, lightning began to spread. It was lightning of a gray hue. It carried the aura of destruction and death. The lightning gathered bit by bit, and even the faint traces that leaked out carried astonishing power. "This is Chaos God Tribulation," Suzumo muttered. He knew well, for his heavenly tribulation god eyes had 3 layers. The strongest among them was precisely the Chaos God Tribulation. No one understood better than him the terrifying power of such lightning. "Seems this will be tricky." Suzumo stood up and said, "I've heard heavenly tribulations are divided into 9 tiers. I wonder how many levels this one will draw," Venerable Nu said, also rising to his feet. "No matter how many levels, we must protect Rock Solid," Suzumo replied. As the Sword God Spirit fused with the true God Sword, each time the Sword God Spirit fused a little more, the thunder above grew stronger and more violent. Rock Solid's body trembled slightly, sweat dripping down his forehead in relentless streams. It was obvious the pressure on him was immense. Even the veins on his arms and forehead bulged and throbbed. The 9-curve god flame wrapped around him, crackling as sparks burst outward. The divine sword let out a ringing hum that echoed through the void. A fierce sword intent shot straight into the heavens, as if vowing to tear the entire sky apart. On the sword, all kinds of energies converged. It seemed to condense the essence of heaven and earth, the 5 elements, yin and yang, sun and moon, and the entire blade shone with dazzling light. Suddenly, the thunder in the sky seemed to be enraged. A gray bolt of lightning directly split downward. Crackling sounds spread in all directions as it fell. Along its path, the void was shattered, forming a dazzling scar across the sky. Before the lightning could even land, Suzumo leapt upward and smashed it apart with a single punch. He looked up again, sensing even more terrifying lightning gathering in the clouds. Glancing at his own fist, he felt a numbing sensation, as though his sense of touch had vanished in an instant. Judging by this scale, it should be a third-level tribulation, Venerable Nu said at his side. But because a tribulation must be endured by the refiner himself, your interference forced it to escalate into a fourth-level tribulation. This lightning is truly formidable, Su Zimo remarked. There are still 3 more strikes to come. If you can't hold out, let the stainless energy of this weapon mountain shield you for a moment, Venerable Nu said. I can't intervene, or the tribulation's power will climb even higher. Su Zimo nodded slightly. The reforging of the divine sword had reached its final stage. There was no room for even the slightest mistake. Above, another thunderous explosion erupted with earth-shaking force. A lightning bolt as thick as a water barrel crashed down. Its destructive intent was inexhaustible, relentless. Su Zimo took a deep breath, letting the heaven-shattering force spread throughout his body. The colossal heaven-shattering giant appeared, and to be safe, he also opened the 3 gates. A tribulation was nothing to underestimate. He dared not show any negligence. This was also Su Zimo's first time confronting heavenly tribulation. When his small figure collided with the raging lightning, a mushroom cloud exploded in the sky. Within 100 miles, every living creature felt their ears ring, as though the very void around them trembled. After the second bolt, Su Zimo stood in the heavens like a war god. But in resisting the lightning, he had exhausted nearly all of his heaven-shattering power. Now his force core was drained and weary. The heaven-shattering power was not endless. Like human strength, it had limits. Once spent, it needed time to recover before condensing again. Still, since the core remained intact, regathering that power would not be too difficult. Yet this tribulation was clearly too great for Su Zimo in his current state. But the heavens gave him no time to recover. With the second strike barely ended, the third followed immediately. The entire sky seemed to rage. This third tribulation was no longer a single massive bolt, but a torrential thunderstorm. The whole range of Weapon Mountain was enveloped. Su Zimo frowned, sitting cross-legged to heal his inner injuries, ignoring the falling lightning. As the storm raged, Weapon Mountain itself seemed to stir. The countless buried weapons within began to tremble. An endless tide of weapon intent gathered. From deep within the mountain, a stream of white energy emerged. This white energy looked extremely pure, as if it could cleanse all impurities of the world. Neither demon nor tribulation, neither dwelling nor void, difficult to begin, harder to end, stainless and without dust. A voice echoed from Weapon Mountain. The stainless energy then formed a barrier, shielding the entire mountain. The voice spread far and wide, as if it was the very spirit of Weapon Mountain itself. The thunderstorm poured down, but all of it struck the barrier. Outside was a raging inferno, yet inside remained calm. The stainless energy flowed gently, and after the lightning finally ended, the barrier slowly faded. The energy dimmed, eventually vanishing into the forest, hidden once more. This stainless energy has reached its limit. It can't be used again, Venerable Nu urgently reminded. The final strike must be faced by you alone. Do you have confidence? We'll find out, Su Zimo replied. It's done. On the mountain peak, Rock Solid's expression lit up with joy as he shouted. The light around the divine sword contracted. What had once been a dazzling rainbow blade now appeared simple and unadorned. The sword tip gleamed faintly. For feet in length, its hilt was black, the blade pure white. A majestic, immortal aura lingered along its edge. At the center of the hilt was a carved flower. Not an ordinary flower, but a triangular sword blossom. At the very moment the sword was completed, it turned into a streak of light, trying to escape. Come back, Su Zimo commanded softly. The blade instantly turned and flew back. Before forging, he had already carved his soul seed into it, just in case. For artifacts all had their own spirit. But overhead, the fourth tribulation, the final strike, contained power beyond anyone's expectations. The sky darkened, the heavens filled entirely with thunder. Gray lightning dragons wove and coiled together. Their roars shook the earth, and no living creature dared to come near. You both retreat or you'll be caught up in it. Suzumo waved to Venerable Nu and Rock Solid. Neither tried to be brave. They knew they could not help him now. The gray lightning tore through the brewing sky. This time, the lightning carried unprecedented might. It was as though a river of stars poured down from the ninth heaven, or a flood swept all things away. Everything was consumed in its wake. Suzumo opened the gate of eternity, charging straight into the lightning. But before he could even reach it, the gate of eternity was destroyed instantly. "Damn this heaven!" Suzumo roared. The lightning struck him directly, dragging his body down into Weapon Mountain. He had no strength left to resist. They said heaven cannot be defied. How powerful must those be who claimed man could conquer the heavens? This was Suzumo's first battle against heavenly tribulation. With a thunderous crash, he fell, shaking the entire Weapon Mountain. The central part of the peak was completely obliterated. "He didn't die, did he?" Rock Solid asked from afar, his heart pounding in terror. "What are you saying?" Venerable Nu glared at Rock Solid, though in his heart he too felt a little uneasy as he rushed toward the Weapon Mountain. After the fourth-level tribulation ended, the sky gradually returned to its former calm. The two arrived at the center of Weapon Mountain. Here a bottomless pit had appeared. This was because of Weapon Mountain's resilience. If it had been any other mountain, it would have already collapsed. "Zimo!" Rock Solid lay by the pit's edge and shouted. His voice echoed in the hollow depths. "Let's go down and take a look," Venerable Nu said. The two stepped into the air, flying down toward the bottom of the pit. The deeper they went, the more shocking the scene became. On one side of the walls, arcs of lightning still flickered. Calling out Suzumo's name as they went, they flew downward. Finally, after 7 or 8 minutes, they reached the bottom. It was already a field of ruins, the ground cracked and emitting black smoke. Stones and soil everywhere had been scorched. The two began searching below. Venerable Nu did not dare to imagine. If Suzumo had truly been annihilated in the lightning, they might not even find his bones. "Master, Brother Su is here." Rock Solid's shout pulled Venerable Nu back from his dark thoughts. Looking over quickly, he saw Suzumo lying beneath a large boulder. His clothing was tattered, torn by lightning strikes. His skin was charred and blackened. "Brother Su, wake up!" Rock Solid quickly lifted him up, shouting. "Cough, cough." Suzumo coughed heavily several times. He awoke from the state of wandering spirit. "Brother, your eyes?" Rock Solid looked at Suzumo's eyes and froze in place. Suzumo's eyes were tightly shut, but above them, Chaos God Tribulation surged, making it impossible to open them. What destructive power the Chaos God Tribulation held. Anything it touched would be destroyed. "It's fine." Suzumo waved his hand. At this moment, he truly could no longer see. In that crucial moment earlier, he had drawn upon the Chaos God Tribulation within his heavenly Tribulation God eyes to resist the tribulation. But unfortunately, it was like striking a stone with an egg. In an instant, the heavenly tribulation pierced through his eyes. His heavenly Tribulation God eyes had been formed from baleful miasma, never truly seeing what real Chaos God Tribulation was. But just now, when stimulated by the godly lightning descending from the heavens, Suzumo discovered his eyes seemed to undergo some astonishing change. Whether it was good or bad, he did not yet know. All he felt was a burning pain. His vision was completely dark, though if one were to look closely, it would be a sea of lightning, endless and terrifying. This change would take time, and Suzumo was in no hurry. "Really nothing?" Rock Solid asked worriedly. "Can you still see? Should we ask the Dean to heal you?" Normally, at the God Meridian realm, blindness would never occur. A severed limb could regrow, even eyes could recover from damage. But Suzumo's current condition looked anything but normal. "No need, I know my own body." Suzumo shook his head. He indeed felt unaccustomed for now, unable to see and inconvenienced in many ways. But with the sense of his God soul, once he adjusted, it would not affect much. He only needed to wait for the transformation of his eyes to finish. Besides, losing his sight made his hearing exceptionally sharp. Su Zimo took a black cloth and tied it over his eyes. Otherwise, going out like this looked unsightly. With the cloth over his eyes, Su Zimo felt he looked rather like that blind old ancestor from the Heavenly Tao Academy. For now, stay at the academy and recover properly, Venerable Nu said. Leave only after your eyes heal. No, Su Zimo waved his hand. I want to go to the Blood Rune domain. Please help me check everything about it. In fact, long ago when searching for Sword Immortal Zhang Yun's clan, Su Zimo had already heard of the Blood Rune domain in the northern continent. The Zhang clan, to which Zhang Yun belonged, was one of the guarding families of the Blood Rune domain. But Su Zimo only knew this much. He needed to be fully prepared before setting out. I knew you would go there, Venerable Nu said. No need to check, I already know. Back then, the Holy Progenitor sealed the Blood Rune beasts, thus creating the Blood Rune domain. There are a total of 5 Blood Rune domains on Primordial Heartlands. 5! Su Zimo frowned. He had only heard of the one in the northern continent. Could it be one in each continent? Exactly. But if you're heading for the ancient celestial court, it doesn't have to be so complicated. Venerable Nu continued. Our middle continent's Blood Rune domain is within the Overlord region. I estimate the ancient celestial court should be there too. The middle continent lies at the core of the 5 continents, a place revered by all directions. It is the most likely place to have built the celestial court. In the Overlord region? Su Zimo was slightly surprised. I'll draw you a map. You'll know when you see it, Venerable Nu said. It's not your strength I worry about, but your current condition. It's fine, Su Zimo waved. Looking back at the ruined Weapon Mountain, Venerable Nu instructed Rock Solid. I'll take Zimo to draw the map. You go inform the Dean. This was unavoidable. Understood. Rock Solid nodded. Then Su Zimo and Venerable Nu left Weapon Mountain and returned to Vermilion Bird Island. This heavenly tribulation left Su Zimo with much to ponder. It was his first true battle against the power of heaven and earth. Even a mere 4th-level tribulation was this terrifying. They said there were 9 levels of tribulation, and even this was not heaven's full strength. He felt his own smallness and the endlessness of his journey ahead. Perhaps he really should set out for the heavens beyond heaven soon. On the Primordial Heartlands, there was little left that could make him stronger. Back on Vermilion Bird Island, Venerable Nu did not draw with brush and ink. Instead, he took out a roll of ancient beast hide. Using spirit force, he sketched routes upon it. Since your eyes are inconvenient, even if I drew you a map, you couldn't see it anyway, he explained. This hide comes from a spirit beast. I'll mark the rough locations on it. You can sense the energy on it to find your way. Thanks, Su Zimo nodded. In the Overlord region, there is a place called the Land of Destruction. You should understand, whether in our Overlord region or others, the imperial lineages are rulers and the strongest existences. But the Land of Destruction is different, Venerable Nu said. As far as I know, back then the Blood Rune beasts in the Middle Continent were the strongest, and this was their base. Even the Holy Progenitor sealing them caused a heaven-shaking war. Just how tragic that battle was, no one knows, because that piece of history has long since been buried in the river of time. What we can encounter is only the Land of Destruction left behind after that great battle back then. The Land of Destruction? Su Zimo frowned slightly. This was also the first time he had heard of this place. Some say the Land of Destruction was cursed. That land is the resting place of death, Venerable Nu said. You'll understand when you get there. Ever since the sealing of the Blood Rune beasts ended, that land has been barren. No plants can survive there. The soil is pitch black, filled with despair and helplessness. How do I get there? Su Zimo asked. The Land of Destruction is beside the Immortal Extinction Sacred Ground. From our Heavenly Tao Academy, head straight west. After passing through the immortal city of the Immortal Extinction Sacred Ground, you'll arrive, Venerable Nu replied. But unlike other places, the Land of Destruction is a land without an owner. Even the imperial lineages cannot govern it. It is a true dark zone. So once you go there, you must be careful. Venerable Nu carefully marked the rough location on the beast hide with each stroke of his brush. He then gave many additional warnings about the place. Su Zimo nodded slightly. By the way, isn't the saintess of the immortal extinction sacred ground here in our academy? Venerable Nu suddenly said. Her name is Ji Ruobing, I think. You could travel with her. At least you'll have someone to watch your back along the way. I don't need anyone watching my back. Su Zimo waved his hand. Women only slow down the speed at which I draw my blade. You'll be passing through their territory after all. Venerable Nu reminded him. And the immortal extinction sacred ground, if you can avoid conflict there, then don't start one. I understand. Su Zimo nodded slightly. As long as they don't provoke me. As one of the 5 imperial lineas, the immortal extinction sacred ground's history stretched through the entire long river of the primordial heartlands. Their strength being in the top 3 of all imperial lineages in primordial heartlands was without question. Thus, no one wanted to provoke them. They were the true overlords of the overlord region. Su Zimo thought it over and decided to ask Ji Ruobing. During the great battle at the Heavenly Tao Academy, she had not left, but instead stayed to help. After briefly chatting with Venerable Nu and gaining a basic understanding of the land of destruction, Su Zimo went to find Ji Ruobing. At this moment Ji Ruobing was at her ice crystal courtyard. Seeing Su Zimo arrive, she was slightly surprised. You want to go to the land of destruction? Ji Ruobing asked. Yes, and since I'll be passing through the immortal extinction sacred ground, I wanted to ask if you plan to return, Su Zimo said. Ji Ruobing pondered for a long time before finally nodding slightly. Fine, I've been away from the lineage long enough. It's time I return and take a look. But what about your eyes? Su Zimo touched the black cloth covering his eyes and shook his head slightly. We leave tomorrow, he said. After agreeing with Ji Ruobing, Su Zimo left. He then sought out the great wisdom monk. This time, Su Zimo did not intend to let the monk accompany him to the land of destruction. Who knew what kind of place the blood rune space was? Even Su Zimo himself wasn't certain. Those blood rune beasts rampaged through the end of the legendary era. They were definitely not benevolent creatures. The great wisdom monk's divination was powerful, but his personal strength was still lacking. You can either wait for me at the true martial sacred ground or return to your universal Dharma sect, Su Zimo told him. When the day of heavens will arrive, we only need to meet at the true martial sacred ground. Since it's your arrangement, I won't press, the great wisdom monk replied. I dare not divine for you. The backlash from fate itself is something I cannot withstand. But I've hinted around it, and it seems your journey this time will be quite eventful. Su Zimo nodded slightly. After chatting with the monk, he returned to his quarters alone. There, he carefully sensed the changes in his eyes. It seemed that the heavenly tribulation god eyes had never truly opened before. This time, after being stimulated by the real chaos god tribulation, who knew what they would become. Inside his body, of the 36 strange meridians, 25 had now been opened. This was thanks to the chaos god tribulation, which blasted open many of his meridians. The benefits to him were many, but in truth, Su Zimo had nearly died in the 4th heavenly tribulation. At the last moment, he had hidden inside the god world to escape. Otherwise, with his current strength, resisting that tribulation would have forced him to exhaust all his trump cards. This was why Su Zimo preferred not to boast about it. At the Heavenly Tao Academy, everyone was busy throughout the day. No one came to disturb him. Until the next morning, Su Zimo finally woke from cultivation. Ji Ruobing was already waiting outside his cave dwelling. Today she wore a long white robe, her expression still cold as ice. Her long hair was tied behind her head with a black ribbon, a few strands framing her face, adding a touch of elegance. At her waist hung a slender jade sword. It was pure white, carved with a jade dragon. At this moment she leaned against a stone, resting her head against it, as she watched Su Zimo emerge from his cave. Let's go. Su Zimo straightened his purple robe and said calmly. The Academy raises special beasts for riding. Shall we take those? Ji Ruobing asked. Flying on our own would be too tiring. Let's ride beasts so we can rest if we need to, Su Zimo replied. The Heavenly Tao Academy raised special spirit beasts for the students to choose from. Su Zimo had his dark tiger, so he didn't need one. Ji Ruobing, however, chose a scarlet Qilin horse. The horse was entirely fiery red, like blazing flames, majestic and powerful. Its hooves were unusual, stepping like flying swallows, its fur thick and dense. Its body was covered in crimson scales. It was an awe-inspiring sight. The two rode their beasts, heading west of the Heavenly Tao Academy. Spirit beasts could travel thousands of miles in a day. Autumn was destined to be the season of decline. The land and sky along the journey were filled with drifting and falling yellow leaves. Even the dusk was golden, reflecting with the leaves. It was as if the whole world was painted in this scene. When I get the chance, I still want to fight you again. Ji Ruobing finally broke the silence, seeing Su Zimo say nothing. Oh! Su Zimo nodded slightly. What does "oh" mean? Ji Ruobing looked at him and asked. It depends on my mood, Su Zimo said flatly. After all, you're too weak. Sometimes I don't even have the interest to fight. Don't look down on others. There's always a higher mountain. Always someone stronger. Surely you understand that, Ji Ruobing retorted angrily. I don't read books, so I don't understand. Su Zimo waved his hand. Lying on the back of the dark sky tiger, he reminded her, Don't bother me. Let me sleep for a while. Seeing Su Zimo close his eyes and rest, Ji Ruobing gave a cold snort and turned her head away. The journey became quiet again.